And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. Of course, it's Monday morning. I'm sorry, not Monday morning. Wednesday morning. It's the hump of the week for the Finest Unfiltered. So I hope everyone's having a good week so far, not working too hard. If you are working hard, well, here's an opportunity to listen to the truth for a moment. So New York City's getting hot. That's what I hear. Marlon tells us it's kicking up. And even hotter than Florida right now. So, yeah, if you're in New York right now, enjoy that warm weather while it lasts. But with that being said, we got to talk about what's going on in New York City. And, of course, the NYPD is being attacked again. Right? So we have the New York City Council, bill after bill, proposal after proposal, always an attack on the NYPD, stripping away from the NYPD. Here's the newest one if you haven't heard yet. And we've talked about this for several years now, myself, John, and Marlon on the Finest Unfiltered. We actually did an episode about this prior, and we did an episode talking about NYPD cops. What would it look like if they have to carry liability insurance? And sure enough, New York City Council actually proposed a bill about NYPD carrying liability insurance. You have to say to yourself, what does that look like? Who would actually insure NYPD cops who have to make a split-second decision? But, of course, you look at some of the names there, it's quite often. Often looks like a tag team. Althea Stevens, Farrah Lewis, same people over and over attacking the NYPD. In my opinion, this bill will eventually go through. And it's also, you can see it on behalf of the State Assembly as well. So what will that look like? What would the world be for the NYPD? You're a New York City police officer. We already have a recruitment problem. We have a retention problem. You're a 22-year-old kid who wants to become a New York City police officer. You have all this oversight, a bias and disdain, CCRB, potential civil liability. And now you'll be expected to carry your own liability insurance. And John and I were just talking offline. Some of the comments he's gotten in a video he put out are, it's going to be cheap, $30-something, this and that. Really? Cheap? Or maybe be cheap per month, but who will actually insure you? What would those insurance guidelines look like? And, because think about it. Well, maybe you'll be covered for this, but you're not covered for this. I mean, this is the unknown. This is a dark area. So pay attention. Here we go. Wednesday morning, Finest Unfiltered. Let's do a Wednesday roundtable. John, Marlon, good morning. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it a while, dude, So it started with where City Council wanted to take away qualified immunity. And you saw legislation and you saw politicians in the state and federal government attempting to pull qualified immunity away from police officers, but, keep it for themselves. So when that had started, I had started to try to develop a product to cover police officers, specifically in the NYPD. Because if you want to talk about liability insurance and you want to talk about liability insurance for being a concealed carry holder, for being an HR 218 holder, a federal officer, a pharmacy, a doctor, I know doctors get sued a lot. So some doctors, especially surgeons, their liability insurance would be high. And I would assume that based upon the amount of lawsuits and the amount of money that gets spent each year on litigation in New York City, particularly against the NYPD, a policy for an NYPD police officer would be probably equivalent to a surgeon. Now, and I think the one thing that we talk about here is that, we're talking overall numbers, right? So the one good thing I think when we're talking about insuring a group that's good is NYPD has a lot of police officers, right? A lot, more than any other department in the country, I believe any other department in the world. So, I mean, obviously when you're going to insure groups, there's going to be a whole lot of people there, right? So one, it's, most cops aren't proactive cops, and we know that. So, but what happens with a guy like Eric Dim? You're an insurance company. He's got 50 substantiations, 136 complaints. I don't know the exact numbers. What do you think the cost for Eric Dim to get a policy like that is? You were involved in a shooting of an emotionally disturbed person who charged you with a firearm. You were found not guilty of anything. You were found to have acted properly. What do you think it's going to cost you? The insurance company is going to charge you to insure you. And we know that once you're in a shooting, the likelihood of you getting into a second shooting is very high, right? Because your hypersensitivity goes up. So what does it cost you at that point? What does it cost you when you have numerous lawsuits? What does it cost you depending on what you do? You know, you're a gang detective versus you work in facilities management. You know, there's all of these different factors that are going to be taken into that account. And I think ultimately when I look at this, I see politicians not only in city council, because there is another bill at the state level that I believe will get through, and this resolution by city council is just calling on the state to push that bill through and for Hochul to sign it into law. This is just opening up an entire grift litigation, and it does nothing. It does absolutely nothing to alleviate the city's responsibility at settling lawsuits when people sue the city, when people sue NYPD cops. So this is going to be sold to the public under the guise of police officers should be responsible for their own actions. You as the taxpayer shouldn't have to foot that bill. But you as the taxpayer are going to continue to foot that bill. And what this is an attempt to drain the resources of individual NYPD cops now. One, through having them buy this policy. Two, through when litigation comes. And that's going to be a whole different, you know, I'll talk about that on the next go around. What happens when actual litigation comes, you know? So what's up, Marl? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I'm going to be quick this go around because I have there are people outside doing the lawn, and it's like, I hope you're not hearing it right now.
We don't hear it.
Don't hear it? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good, brother.
Yeah, it's blasting in my ear right now. But yeah, good morning, guys. Morning, chat. Yeah, I think this legislation would lead. Wait, before I go, first of all, you know, we had a great episode of 10-4 Tavern last night, and if you guys didn't watch it, make sure to go back and watch it. Okay, they had former Chief of Department Louis Anamone on there, and I think it was a great discussion and quite a contrast hearing Louis and hearing Rodney. You know, I think you guys need to hear it for yourself, but I think the job could use some more stand-up chiefs right now, you know, and chiefs who you know, old school in their mentality. But yeah, when you guys get a chance, go back and watch it. So
spot on.
But in regards to this measure, I think it leads to a whole lot of other unforeseen issues, and I also think it's ties into the AI stuff as well. I'll explain as we go around again, but I'm starting to think now. You know, we talked a little bit about it, I think on Monday maybe, but I'm starting to think really that all of this legislation is really just a grift for Wall Street. You know, it may seem progressive and it may seem anti-cop, but I'm really starting to believe this is just, you know, I mean, the people who are pushing it are anti-cop, we know for sure, but I think in nature that this bill is really a gift to Wall Street. And I'll talk about it as we go around again.
Yeah, Marlon, I just want to say spot on, brother. I watched the 10-4 Tavern and I watched Louis Anamone, and gave me a breath of fresh air. You know, I listened to him and I said, wow, here's a guy that really loved police work. I saw a whole different perspective lens from, he's that white chief I've been asking for to speak honest about the police. And I could tell he truly did love the cops. And I've heard a lot of different things about him. I heard great things. I heard some things that weren't great also. But when he spoke as an older gentleman, he really remembered police work. You could tell, like, you could see it was genuine. He was smiling. He was enjoying sitting in that interview, because even when he spoke about just being young on the job in the 6-0 walking a beat, I could feel that he remembered it. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed being a cop. He even remembered his sergeant's name back then. being a rookie, and he just the way he spoke about police work, it was a breath of fresh air. So Louis Anamone, God bless you. That was a cool interview. It was authentic. So with that being said, let's jump into this conversation, right? So some of the NYPD cops I've spoke to also, same as John, haven't really put too much thought into this, and they're not concerned. So I'm thinking that maybe the unions have already spoke to them about this, because some of the cops I spoke to also are not really putting too much stock into this, haven't really thought about it much, and said they're not really concerned how much it's going to cost. So I'm at this point, I'm wondering if the unions have already kind of raised this conversation yet, saying, no big deal. Like, normally what we hear from the unions, it probably won't cost you much. But just to get an idea, right? Because I think, same thing as you, John, that the city council is trying to put this on the same level par as when it comes to doctors. Now, keep in mind, doctors pay astronomical fees in liability insurance. But keep in mind, they also have much higher salaries. And so, John, you brought up a great point, by the way. I just want to give this flashpoint John brought up, because there are cops that do patrol, and there are specialized cops in specialized units. For instance, SRG, that's a specialized unit. So, would specialized units have to have a higher threshold of liability insurance, just as doctors? So, I took some notes here just to get an idea. So, if you're an average for New York State, Florida, some different states, if you're a doctor in family medicine, primary care, the average doctor shells out $7,000 to $20,000 a year in liability insurance. That's what they pay. And if they're in emergency medicine, they pay an average of $20,000 to $40,000. General surgeons commonly pay $40,000 to $85,000 because it's in a high-risk state, which New York is considered a high-risk state. OBGYNs, think about that, can exceed $100,000 annually in places like New York, Florida. This is for doctors. And then neurosurgeons, which is a extreme specialty, can pay over $200,000 annually. So these are liability insurances for doctors, which I think is on par with what they want for cops. Now, they can pay astronomical fees because they have high salaries. What would it look like for cops? This is scary stuff. John, what are your thoughts on those numbers?
Well, I think that's the thing right there, is that, one, anytime we talk about insurance, I just have this thing that flashes in my head and I'll never forget it. My house got destroyed in Sandy, the first floor of my home. I'm on a slab on Staten Island, so I don't have a basement. And the first floor of my house, I had fish inside of it and I had sand everywhere. And, the first few days I was working, I think 18-hour days. So I came home and I basically power washed the inside of my house, the first floor of my house. I mean, could you imagine power washing your house? Like, I'm like, all right, yeah, everything's destroyed. Everything's getting ripped out. And, in between work, I literally gutted my whole house. I was like, during that time, there was like no sleep ever. So, that was a real crazy time in for the insurance industry, but it was a catastrophic event, right? Because a lot of people were affected by that event. So about 2-3 weeks into it, I have my whole house gutted. I'm like ensuring that mold's not going to grow back in the house. I'm replacing every system that I have on the first floor, electrical, heat, anything you could think of. I rip out the entire thing and replace everything back in kind. So I'm in the process of doing that, and the insurance company comes in now, and I'm there and I'm filthy and I got everything all over me, and but the place is pretty clean now and it's brought down to the studs. And he's like, "Oh, this isn't a basement." And I'm like, "No, this is a first floor." He goes, "Oh, good. We don't cover basements." I'm like, "Excuse me?" He goes, "Yeah, we don't cover basements." I was like, wait. I said, "I've been paying you insurance the whole time I own this house. And then a catastrophic event happens. And now you're going to tell me you don't cover basements? Shouldn't that have been in the fine print? Shouldn't that have been nice in bold letters, not in the fine print down there?" And he's like, all right, well, you don't have to worry about it because we don't cover basements, but we don't cover yards either. You know, and he's like, and you know, the thing is, we would cover your yard if the damage came from the wind. But we know that the damage came from the water. And we don't cover that for flood. I was like, wait. How do you know where the damage came from? Did you do an analysis of do you have it on video? Like, how do you know that the damage didn't come from the wind and not the water? How do you, I was like, the wind was very bad. That night, the night prior, I had a stop sign fly off of a street in Brooklyn. A sign almost cracked me in the face. I was like, came right by me. That's how strong the wind was during Sandy. So I bring that story up because, you know, NYPD cops and police officers or anybody, you will be indemnified by the city of New York. The way it sits currently, your qualified immunity will kick in, even though city council has voted to take away your qualified immunity, right? It doesn't matter. Like you corporation council will still indemnify you if you acted within your training, within department guidelines, and within the law. Now, we see recently there's a lot of nuance into that, right? There's a lot of nuance into that. Oh, you got a substantiated CCRB? Oh, we're not going to indemnify you. Oh, you got this? We're not going to indemnify you. Oh, you got a CD, a command discipline for wearing white socks on that job. Yeah, we're not going to indemnify you. So, and I bring that point up to tell you that even if you're insured, regardless of the cost of this, do you think that they're not going to use the same standard that the NYPD is currently using? If you face discipline about your actions, just because you're paying the money doesn't mean when that catastrophic event happens that the insurance company is actually going to pay you out. Now, during Sandy, thank God that I'm a cheap bastard and I save money, because I spent about $130,000 putting my house back together. And I did that through a lot of my own blood, sweat, and tears, and people I know and work, and like really piecemealing out everything and not getting raped by all of these contractors that were looking to rape people. And about a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, I got back about $80,000 from my insurance company. You know, so I basically ate about $50,000. But if I didn't have money in the bank, I might have walked away from my house, dude, because I don't know how I would have got it back in operation, and I don't know how I would have got the gas turned back on. I don't know how I would have got the electric turned back on. I don't know how I would have got any of that turned back on, because the insurance company did not give me $1 until I completed, and they came in stages to make sure that I was doing everything the way I had to do. I didn't get $1 until I put every wall back in that house, and the insurance company didn't want to give me the full check because I didn't put light switch covers and paint yet. I was like, dude, you're paying the whole thing. This is 100% complete. I don't need light switch covers on my wall, and I don't need paint on the wall. I could live like this. My whole first floor is complete. I have a brand new bathroom, brand new kitchen, brand new electric, brand new water heater, brand new anything you could think of. And I'm like, this is 100% complete. I was like, he wanted to put it down as 70% complete, and then I was like, dude, I'm out $150,000 right now. I need some money. Like, you know, I was like, I'm broke now. Now I have no money, and so I bring that point up because I really just worry about all of the nuances when it comes to police work and how it'll be painted. And you got to think, just because you're insured, again, it doesn't alleviate the city from the financial liability. So at the same time, you might fight this case and you might have a strong case. What happens when the city settles out and pays the money to the person who's suing you? What happens when what happens to your case? Your case is trash now. It's like, wait, the city settled with them. And you think, and there's going to definitely be a clause in there. There's 100% going to be a clause. The insurance company's not in the business to lose money. Just put it this way. They're not in the business where they ever want to pay you out. You know the old saying, like, you know, the number one rule in the casino is to keep you playing because eventually they're going to get your money. That's basically the insurance company. Is basically they never want to pay you out. They just want to take those payments. They want those guys in facilities management, in crime analysis and all of these other things. They want to take all those funds and never pay a dollar out. That's the ultimate goal of the insurance company. You're a proactive cop. You get put into a politically charged situation that's being painted crazily in the media and in the news. I really don't know that there will be a policy that covers you. I don't.
Well, the thing is also that think how much insurance kind of changes behaviors, because you're seeing in Florida right now that a lot of the older people in Florida, or the the people who don't who are on fixed incomes, or they don't make enough, or kind of the word I've been seeing from a couple of real estate videos is that they're moving further inland, maybe moving to North Florida, or they're moving to other states and away from the coastline, because a lot of insurance companies aren't they're not insuring houses that are in like flood zones, or at risk of further flood damage in the event of a storm surge or whatnot. So think how much that changes behaviors now. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is that how much would this change proactive policing? If guys know that if I go to narcotics, say for instance, or if I go to a high profile a high profile unit, let's say I go to like gun suppression, or what's that unit called? Well, one of those units, right? The type of people that I'm interacting with daily are more violent. They're career criminals. I mean, the chances of you getting into say a shooting, or say getting into an incident, I think are increased. So does that mean now that you would have to get insurance for yourself? How would that change your behavior? How would that motivate cops to go to those units? Because I would think there'd be certain cops who said, you know what, I wanted to go to that unit, but I'm gonna have to pay this high premium if I go to this unit. So I'm gonna go do something else. And think how much that may change the behaviors of active cops. Let's say even in a precinct, though, maybe even in one of these public safety teams, which basically anti-crime, right? How much that would change cops' behaviors if they've had these bogus complaints, and they've been sued before, and now they may be facing high premiums. I would tend to think that this is going to further dissuade proactive policing, and guys from being certainly guys from being really active and like going to these gun units.
I tell you what, Modern Samurai is spot on, brother. Actually, I'm laughing because Rob Lucas says when you give spot ons, you it lowers your premium. So, but Modern Samurai says insurance is a scam. It really is a scam. And the two flashpoints John just discussed, I too was affected by that also. So John was spot on when it comes to that. So during Hurricane Sandy, my house was affected by it also. The house was in Great Kills in Staten Island, and we had water about 8 feet high. And I remember at that time I learned about reading fine print, because I have to admit, when I was young, I bought my house. I never read the fine print on insurance. I didn't really know how it worked. I really didn't understand at the time. I was young. And I bought the house, and then when Hurricane Sandy hit, man, I learned a lot about insurance and the scams that they pull in the red tape. And thank God FEMA stepped in and helped out a bit, but still there was a huge gap from the renovations, and as John said, it only covered about 70%. So at least for me, and I had to come out of pocket with a lot of money. But what I remember that it happened, I learned to read the fine print when it comes to insurance. So there was about 8 feet of water, and the refrigerator was floating inside the house. Someone's jacuzzi hot tub from their house was in my window. And but I remember looking around, and I'm like, well, I got flood insurance and I got homeowners insurance, right? So I thought, let's go get coffee. Let's go get something to eat. I wasn't stressed out about it. But then when I spoke to insurance companies, that's where I found out the red tape and found out the scams that they pulled. So the flood insurance didn't cover the contents of the home. Flood insurance said, well, we don't cover the contents of your home. So I didn't know that. So they only cover structural. I'm like, wait a minute. So the fridge, all the appliances that were destroyed.
I forgot about that.
Right? So you know what I'm talking about. They said, we don't cover any of it. You have to go to your homeowner's insurance. Okay. So I called my homeowner's insurance. And the homeowner's insurance said, we can't cover those contents because it was caused by a flood.
Yep.
So it was, and that's where the red tape came in. It was back and forth. What a scam. So Modern Samurai, you spot on. And I think Modern Samurai, I think you said it also. Insurance companies, they don't lose. It's like going to the casino, right? The house always wins. Same thing with insurance companies. They're not in business to lose. And so I learned the fine print and the red tape behind insurance. That was a scary time, John, right? It was a scary time. I mean, we were still at work 12 to 18 hours a day. And I was working in the Lower East Side at the time in PSA 4. And it was, if you remember during that time, it was just complete darkness. It was a blackout up to, I think it was 34th Street. And we were just working complete darkness, working all day. My house was destroyed. I had to have cops sitting by it because people were just thieving all my tools. It was an interesting time. And also the other flashpoint John brought up, which is spot on. I was affected by it also in the NYPD. So in a particular incident, it was a stop, question, possibly frisk, and I got a substantiation from CCRB. And it was a command discipline. And I was not covered. I was not indemnified. The civil liability actually fell on my lap, and I actually had to pay $3,000 out of pocket. Now, it could be more than that. I mean, thank God the union had stepped in at the time and paid a substantial amount. The city had paid some. Even though I wasn't indemnified, they paid a little bit. There was an agreement made. But I had to come out of pocket for $3,000. So you're going to work, you're working hard, you're not making that much money anyway as a cop. I know cops are making more money now, but still, in relation to the economics right now, gas prices and inflation, it's still not an amazing salary. It's okay for what it is right now. And now we expect them to pay and have the burden of liability. And I read you some of these numbers of what doctors are paying. And think about specialist doctors, what they're paying. And that's the point to Marlon. What he's saying is, what about specialized cops that are out there? Who wants to do intrusive police work knowing damn well your liability is going to be far more than someone who's doing something more administrative or something that's not as intrusive? Who's going to put themselves out there? Now, you know what? Here's the sad part. The sad part we learned is that city council and people in the city know that no matter how much you beat up the cops are the best punching bag ever. You can beat them up till there's nothing left and they'll still go out there and do the job. How do we know? Sergeant Eric Duran is losing his life for 9 years, potentially sentenced for doing his job. And cops are going out and doing the same job that Eric Duran did. They're doing buy and bust. I heard it stopped in the Bronx, but I heard the other 4 boroughs are still doing it at this point. That doesn't really make a difference. But the cops are still going out there and doing the job, knowing damn well they could be the next Sergeant Eric Duran. They could be Hugh Barry. They could be Daniel Pantaleo. So, yes, common sense will tell you. It's easy for me to say it now because I'm retired. That shit, if this liability insurance came out, I'm not doing the job. It's easy for me to say that right now. But for the active guys that are there right now, will they still do the job? And unfortunately, many of them will.
Yeah, so everyone in the chat's talking about this FOP insurance. Oh, I pay $75 annually, Craig CB says. I've heard it's up to $375 annually. Pat Donahue says, I've had this. This isn't a new thing. You know, I used this when I was sued by an NYPD captain. This is fundamentally different than everything that's happening right now because this was never something meant for an NYPD cop. Never something meant for an NYPD cop. I'll tell you right now, Eric Dim, if he was still on the job, he's not getting insured. And if he does, he's going to pay ginormous money, and the limits on his policies are going to be very low. Meaning, I told you guys the other day, the LBA dental plan, right? Dental insurance, right? Insurance. They cover $2,000 per family, right? I pay money for that. Right? I pay money for that. I pay a couple $100 a year for that, right? And what do I get? $2,000 a year annually for that insurance, right? And anything over that, it comes out of your pocket. So, like, I'd love to see what, in fact, I'll run and reach out to the FOP after this. I'll find out exactly what that plan covers. But I guarantee you right now, if you're running around there and you feel safe and you feel like you're protected, you really got a full sense of hope there. You probably have that full sense of hope that me, Marlon, and Eric had when we thought the unions protected us and would fight for us. Where we thought that the upper echelon of the NYPD would stand up for us. You're operating under that full sense of hope because there are redefined print. Oh, it'll cover your legal fees up to what? Your own union won't even cover an appeal for a sergeant who everyone believes was wrongfully convicted. Your own union won't do it. They won't cover the appeal. They're asking you to send money to cover the appeal. He paid into the system. Was that not insurance? What are you paying your endowment association for? You're paying for them in catastrophic situations that they'll be there for you. Are they there for you? No, they sent a fundraiser from a nationally backed other fundraiser. It's like, what? You guys aren't. You not only are you not fronting the money, you're not even fundraising for it. You're having someone else do it. So I think, look, I'm a big proponent of life insurance because it's real easy. You die, your family gets paid out. Actually, my life insurance policy, I could kill myself and my family still gets paid out. And so, you got to look at the fine print, and that's 100% what Super Psalm Standy taught me is you got to look at the fine print because I was blown away, bro.
Damn right, bro.
I was blown away. I was like, wow, what is this garbage? Like, what is it? And I never got $1 for anything in my yard. I had a 2-car garage in my yard. I had a pool. I had decks. I had anything, gazebo. I had a million things back there. Not one thing was covered. It was unbelievable. And then at the end of it, FEMA reaches out to me and says, "Yeah, the insurance companies robbed you. We want to investigate it." I said, "Okay, investigate it." They're like, "All right, send us everything." I was like, "It was 2 years ago. I'm not sending you anything. Investigate through the insurance company. Tell me what they owe me." And they came back with like whatever. They gave me like another $20,000 at the end of it. I was like, whatever. I don't even know. I was like, it still doesn't cover what I lost. It was like a slap in the face at that point. I was just like, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. But I think that's the thing here, right? Is like you're not looking at the liability factor. And so again, like I said, I think that the one thing when you're looking to insure cops on anything, and this is where I think the unions really, really fail, is when you look at our dental and our eye plan, it should be a coalition. It shouldn't be Scott Monroe or Pat Hendry or any of these cocksuckers looking to hook up their brother-in-law or anybody else. It should be them saying, we're all going to come together and we're going to get the best deal for our members, instead of being like little kings of their own little fiefdoms or little mafia heads or believe themselves to be heads of the mafia family. So I'll tell you right now, you guys wouldn't have lasted that long in 1980s Brooklyn. You guys aren't that smart. But it's you just wouldn't have, and so I think, you really got to look at it like, all right, well, if they insure us as a whole, the cost will be cheaper. Okay, but what is the cost for a kid that works in the 7-3 precinct versus cost of the kid that works in Central Park or the 1-2-3? What does it cost a cop that works in facilities management versus a cop that's in the SU that's most likely to get into a shooting? What does it cost, a guy like Eric Dim that was active in the streets in New York with tons of CCRBs, the cost of somebody that's involved in a shooting? What are those limits? What does it look like? And ultimately, at the end of the day, why should me, as an employee of the city of New York, if this is the cost of doing business, this is something that should be collectively bargained through the city of New York. The city of New York should be paying for this policy, whether it's a blanket policy for the entire NYPD or if it's a policy per individual. And all of this stuff should be very transparent. Now, I think that the unions may have had conversations about this in the past, when we actually had union heads, when we actually had people like Ed Mullins in charge. I think there was some conversation as qualified immunity was being discussed. However, I don't think the membership knows anything about any of this legislation that's coming up or hasn't really thought about it just based upon the reaction to the post that I got. That thing went viral. It went viral in group chats all over the place. It went viral all over social media. And I think, now the conversation's being had. So if we're going to have the conversation, let's ask the questions that matter. How should I be paying this as an individual? If I'm paying this as an individual, how much should it cost? How much should it cost? And then what are the limits? What exactly is covered? Is it just my legal fees? What if there's a settlement at the end of it? How much of that settlement? Let's just say, like whatever, you're accused of choking someone to death that you put in a headlock and they die because they had a 99% blockage in their heart. And the city of New York says you're wrong. And the police commissioner gets up there because the mayor tells him and says, we failed. Because the mayor handed him a piece of paper and said, here, you're going to say this. And he's like, okay, we failed. As you watch him sell his soul to the devil right up on the stage, right? And so that's what you have to think there. What happens? Now, the city of New York gives that guy $7 million and he's suing you for $50 million. Your legal defense is probably going to cost you about $3-4 million. How much of my legal defense is going to be covered? And if there is a settlement and I lose that case, how much of that settlement will that insurance cover? And I guarantee you, when you know the answer to those questions, you're not going to feel so safe. You're not going to be like, yeah, FOP, bro, $365 a year, no big deal. I got it, Mo. It's all good. Yeah, you're not going to think like that no more.
Yeah, a lot there to dig into. But for those of you who are saying that this isn't a big deal, we need you to stop thinking with your boomer brain now, with the boomer, a part of your brain that can't see long term and can't see where this is all leading to. Okay. Right. So the reason why I'm saying that is something for you to keep in mind here. Right. I mentioned it before on Monday. Right. Wall Street plays a significant role in New York City and New York State's tax revenue. Okay. For New York City, it's 8.4% of the budget comes from Wall Street, the securities industry, right? New York State, it is 19.4%, right? And the share of personal income tax is 24.3% in New York State, in New York City, and 85.7% in New York State. So I think it's fair to say that the city and the state are heavily tied to Wall Street. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because, so we talked about insurance and how it's, you really have to redefine print here, right? Because just because you have the insurance doesn't mean you're actually gonna get covered when you need it, right? So here's the thing about this policy, about this insurance. A lot of the big name carriers, right, are staying out of this discussion because they've talked about they have problems with the high risk and uninsurability of certain aspects of policing, right? And a lot of them are saying that they would have to price premium so high that officers wouldn't be able to afford it, right? Now there's a middleman that's coming in here to solve these issues, and that middleman is big tech. How so, you ask? Well, we've talked about this before, in that Isa Abbasi, who's rumored to be the incoming police commissioner and going to replace Tish, has implemented in Patterson. He implemented this body cam solution that uses AI to analyze body camera footage, right? And it's not just in Patterson, but it's popped up in other cities, other jurisdictions around the country. So basically, the body camera analyzes the video footage and it makes assessments of critical situations from that footage, right? So why is this good for police, for these agencies? Well, because according to them anyway, it says it has resulted in 36% decrease of use of force. In when it comes to Patterson themselves, let's see. Okay, yeah, Patterson themselves, they're saying that it's been a 3x increase in the use of professional language, 50% reduction in unprofessional language, and a 57% increase in officers properly introducing themselves. So basically, the AI watches the body camera for compliancy and for the officers, following guidelines, right? And it's because of the AI, they're claiming that compliance is up and officers are being more professional and doing what they should do, and there's a decrease in usage of force, right? So how does this relate to insurance? Well, you can see where it goes hand in hand, because if the big name insurance companies don't want to get involved in this, what would make them want to be a part of this? If there's AI monitoring your footage for your whole time of patrol. Now we know you have supervisors that review your body camera footage at the end of the day, but that supervisor isn't going through every minute, every second of that video. But now the AI will, right? And the AI will be able to make assessments on your risks, right? And your level of compliance with department procedures. And that AI will essentially be able to tell you how much of a risk factor you are, okay? And therefore make it the large insurance companies more palpable, make insuring police officers more palpable for the larger insurance companies. So again, Wall Street's tied heavily into New York City and the state, and this effectively creates a new market for Wall Street to be involved in. And even more so, the securities industry that's tied to a lot of other Wall Street products, like it's tied to debt and all that, is going to benefit heavily from this new industry being created, this new market being created. But when I come around again, I'll show you some of the companies involved in it. And yes, the companies that are involved in it now in specialty insurance are 100% also involved in AI. So,
well, that's a great point. I think everything's involved in AI, and the scary part about that is how subjective AI can be. Especially, it can be so subjective to actually be advantageous to the insurance companies so they don't make payouts. So I just want to address one thing before we go back to that, because I think it's a great topic, Marlon. Pat Donnie, if you're still here, brother. So I'm very aware of the FOP stuff that you guys are talking about. Now, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, to my knowledge, what I do know about it is that the FOP, it's not an insurance plan. There's a clear distinction, pretty significant distinction between what the FOP has in comparison to what we're talking about now with liability insurance. So correct me if I'm wrong. To my knowledge, the FOP provides an option to pay for a legal defense protection plan. Now, that's far different from what we're talking about, right? Because a legal defense protection plan is a plan that provides administrative paperwork, provides legal defense, such as attorneys in case you are sued. It provides that legal defense that you need, right? All the paperwork done, the investigations, the attorneys, things like that, representation. But to my knowledge, what it doesn't provide is an insurance plan, which is far different. And that is if there is liability on your behalf as the law enforcement officer, if there is a payout, that the legal defense plan does not pay that. So that's far different. That's not an insurance plan. There's a big distinction between that legal defense plan and a liability insurance, where the insurance company would have to pay out. And so what Marlon's saying is I think AI is involved in everything. Now, AI is very subjective, and it could be advantageous to an insurance company. And we kind of have to figure out also is how far does this go, right? So, for instance, if an insurance, we're talking about the super speeders bill, right? So, if an insurance company, let's say they decide to take on a high risk plan, like myself, Eric Dim, right? Doing intrusive police work, excessive amount of complaints from the CCRB. If the insurance company decides to insure myself, would eventually that body camera be permitted to be received by the insurance plan to be watched in real time, so that they could be, especially, or have it monitored in real time by AI, so that the insurance company is aware of what's going on, and as far as whatever scenario that is covered by the insurance plan. So, Pat Donahue, good morning, brother. He says, I was referencing a union liability policy that covered expenses for me if the need arose. Hold on, I just lost something here. And covered for what's that? Covered expenses for a frivolous federal lawsuit. Yeah, so exactly that. A legal defense that's exactly what I figured you meant. A legal defense protection program. So this liability insurance, that would be something separate. That's a distinct, significant distinction. However, that's important also, right? So that's a good question. With liability insurance, will the union still have enough representation, or will these insurance companies want you to get representation from the insurance company? So these are good questions. Pat Donahue was quite interesting. I do think there's a clear distinction, but these raise a lot of questions. And what we know about the past history of city councils, they propose bills that are not well thought out. So clearly this wasn't well thought out, because what will this look like? You're a cop now, you get on the job. First of all, where do you get that insurance? What insurance companies will be on this plan? Will you have to pick out a specific certain companies to go to? Are these policies going to be vetted by the unions? I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but I can tell you this. What I learned from Hurricane Sandy, and John's telling you the same thing, that fine print is scary. And even with reading the fine print, there's a lot of semantics to actually understand how the insurance works. So this is scary stuff. What is this going to look like? That's the big question.
Yeah, again, I'm not shitting on getting insurance and having insurance, and I think that was smart of you, Pat, to have, so you don't have to pay upfront costs, right? Like you could have some type of insurance for that legal defense, but I think people just need to understand the difference between a legal defense fund or legal defense insurance versus indemnification insurance, right? When the city indemnifies you, they give you an attorney, so you're not paying for legal representation. And then the city covers any payout that results from that litigation. I don't know of an insurance company that's currently doing that. And if they do, that policy would be phenomenal. Now, here's the issue that I see now. One, I've been vetting a few companies. I've actually talked to a few companies. I'm going to give my opinion on who I think is the best one, but I don't have enough information to do that at this point. So, but at some point I will. And here's my thing. I believe in insurance. I have a lot of insurance. I have a lot of life insurance. But you need to understand that one factor. If you're paying for legal defense fund and you're paying for a legal defense fund, then what are you paying your union for? I know the DEA, the union dues are going up now. Why are you paying $120 a month to your union if you also have to pay for insurance for legal defense? Right? And it might not be a terrible thing, honestly. I don't ever tell anybody to leave the union. I don't, but I really think that their lack of understanding of what's happening, or their lack of care, or their inability to understand what's happening. I'm not sure which one it is, or that they just became, now that they work for the city or some deal was made. I don't know what's the city has looming over the union heads. And I don't think that's just for the police, by the way. I'm talking every single union. But I think the police, more so than none, you could see it a lot easier with them, that they will not fight against the city. And I don't know what's happening there, but I believe that they're phasing themselves out. A lot of people like, oh, you guys are union busters. You're going after the union. It's like, no, we're not. We're not. The unions are doing all of this to themselves. Why are you hearing about this from a podcast and not from a union that you pay over $120 a month to? Right? You're paying for representation. What kind of representation are you getting? You're paying for legal defense. So why are you paying for more legal defense? You're paying for legal defense, yet they're asking you for money to send to a different union or a different organization to fund the appeal of one of your members. So there's a lot here. But the other thing that I learned in Sandy is immediately after the payout was had and all that happened, I get a letter in the mail. You're dropped. Find a new insurance company. So now I have to find a new insurance company, and then I get the runaround, and then they want to increase my premium 15% a year because I'm in a flood zone. And I'm like, I'm not in a flood zone. My house is not in a flood zone. That was a 100-year flood. There's floods all the time. I am not in the flood zone. It's clearly mapped out. Here's the flood zone. They're like, no, we don't go off of what the city says and how the city and the state labels flood zones. You have to do your own independent, whatever you want to call it. Like, what do they call that when they have the map of your house? I'm losing my brain right now. Your own independent survey.
Survey.
You have to survey your property. Excuse me. So I had to pay another couple of $1,000s, get my own survey, and then I was able to get insured, and I was able to not have my premium increase by 15% every year. But I had to do all of that on my own. And so now the question comes: you're insured. And now you're in New York, which is a real volatile market, right? It's totally different than if you're St. Johns County Sheriff, right? It's totally different market than if you're a cop in Westchester. It's a totally different market, right? The risk there is a lot higher that you will be sued, right? And you could literally do the breakdown of commands. Who's more likely to get a civilian complaint review board, a CCRB complaint too, by commands? You could break all that stuff down. But now let's say you're in this market, you're assessing risk because that's what the insurance company's doing, right? That's how they're figuring out how much you're going to pay versus how much they could pay out. Should this happening? They're assessing risk. And now I have Marlon insured, and Marlon transfers. Marlon's like, you know what? I'm done with this intel gig. I want to go back out there and I want to be a cop again. It's like, oop, boop. Premium goes up, right? Now Marlon's back out there like, hey, Marlon, we reassessed you this year. You changed professions or you got promoted and now you're here. You're in this high profile precinct where there's a lot of incidents, where there's more use of forces, where there's more civilian complaints. There's more shootings by police. There's more shootings by perpetrators, all this stuff. So we've reassessed you. Now you're going to have to pay more money. The following year comes, and they reassess Marlon again. And they're like, hey, Marlon, you got 7 CCRB complaints. Yeah. But they were all from one incident. It was 4th of July. It was 7 people on the scene. They all filed a civilian complaint review board against me. Yeah, anyway, whatever. You dropped. Boop, boop. Now you have to go shop around, get your own policy. Is this something that cops should have to do? Are police officers becoming free agents? And that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like you're no longer part of a union. You're no longer part of an organization. They're pushing you away from the city. They're not giving you training. They're telling you, you have discretion. You have discretion. So am I a free agent? Because if I'm a free agent, then I'm going to negotiate my own contract, right? If you want to pay John Macari, yeah, no problem. How much do you pay Kaz Daughtry? Oh, you paid him $300,000 a year? Yeah, I'm worth about $600,000 because my experience is much greater than his. I'm a lot more competent than his. I could actually testify in court. I have no baggage. I have no personal baggage. I have nothing waiting in the wings. I have no scandals waiting in the wings. You could open my closets. There's no skeletons in them. You're paying him $300,000. I want $600,000. Oh yeah, and you're gonna foot the bill for my insurance. Oh yeah, that. And I'm not gonna do this, and I'm not gonna work these hours, and I'm not gonna work these days, and I'm not gonna work these holidays. Right? If you're gonna make me a free agent, then I'm gonna be a free agent. And that's what it sounds like is almost happening here. It's like, well, you're part of the union, and we're only going to pay you X amount of dollars, but you're acting as your own independent agent. It's like, well, if I'm acting as my own independent agent, then we should be negotiating the terms of my contract. And I think ultimately what the main goal of it is, and Marlon pointed out when he showed about the Trulio body camera, right? Oh yeah, the cops, they don't curse at anybody anymore. They talk much nicer to people. You don't get those discourtesy complaints anymore. And what those cameras did, and what that AI thing did, is it emasculated the police work. It emasculated the department. And what you get now, instead of police work in Patterson, is you don't get a less corrupt police force. You don't get a nicer, gentler police force. You get a LinkedIn style of policing. And what's a LinkedIn style of policing? You get this phony, fake, we care about you, we care about your communities, but hey, you know what? We're only going to show up while your kid's bleeding on the ground after he's already dead, because we don't want to get involved, and we don't want to have to maybe raise our voice, or maybe put our cops into a scenario where they have to use force. So we're just going to back out, and we're just going to come clean up the mess, and we're going to investigate the major crimes, because and we talk about it often on here, like like how phony and fake everybody is on LinkedIn. I love this profession. They're all phony. They're all liars. You talk to that person about their post, that will literally contradict every single thing they wrote in that post if you have a real honest conversation with them. And that's why the Finest Unfiltered is fundamentally different than everybody else, because we're not giving you the LinkedIn style of policing. We're not giving you the LinkedIn style interviews, and we're not giving you the LinkedIn style analysis. We're giving you the actual real analysis of what's happening. And what's happening is, this is way beyond defund the police. Defund the police looks like child's play compared to what's happening right now.
Yeah, it's true. So where am I at? So remember, I told you guys how Wall Street profits are, the city and state's budget are heavily tied into Wall Street. And here it is from the state comptroller telling you again, how much how much they are tied to Wall Street. Okay, if Wall Street does well, they have a profitable year. The state, their budget gaps are much smaller. So if Wall Street has a bad year, then it's going to be a problem for the state and for the city. And this is all, in my opinion, this is also why the last thing they want is a stock market crash. By the way, and in my opinion, they're doing all they can to keep the bubble going, especially this bubble when it comes to AI, because we know most of this AI stuff is a circle jerk, and most of it doesn't lead to anything productive. I mean, yeah, I could make some great memes using AI, and it can act as a great enhanced search engine, but a lot of the other stuff, I mean, really, I've yet to see the advancements that are equal to the amount of money that's been thrown at it right now. But anyway, again, this is the state comptroller telling you about that, right? So I brought up that there are companies that are involved in the policing, ensuring policing, are also involved in insurance. One of those companies is this company called X Insurance rather. Here it is, right? X Insurance. Let me pull up X Insurance. Yeah. So this is X Insurance, right? And one of the things is, X Insurance, like I said before, is also involved in AI, right? They X Insurance uses AI in terms of what they say. They use it custom risk assessments, right? They also let's see, their strategy relies on direct access to human underwriters using AI automated algorithms, you know? So basically, they're using not only the algorithms, but I came across something about them using cameras, right, to make assessments on coverage as well. So, for instance, if you have this is in their other insurance, right? Right now, right? You take a picture of something, and the AI will basically act as the auditor, right? So yeah, the point I'm making in bringing up all of this is that, again, if this does well, if we have a new market that does well, and it's going to basically give Wall Street a new industry to be involved in and to make a lot of money in, and that in terms in that will boost profits on Wall Street. And what'll that do? It'll help the budget gaps that New York City and New York State currently have. What I think this is again, it's really a grift for Wall Street. And and I believe the reason why the unions aren't going to talk about any of this is for the same reason they won't talk about the scamdemic. Because as I've said before, I think the scamdemic was like a backdoor layoff and a backdoor cost cutting measure. And the unions aren't talking about it because looming over all their heads is looming over all their heads is a the is the bankruptcy of the potential bankruptcy of the city. And I think they all know that the how big the gaps are, because next year there's going to be another $6 to $7 billion gap, and they all don't want that come to Jesus moment. Because if we were to really cut the stuff, cut the waste and fraud in the city, we would actually see what's going on in the unions. We would see all the connections between the money and the corruption in the city. And again, as we said before, the crumbs wouldn't flow to the progressive industrial complex and all the other people involved in the progressive industrial complex, which are also the unions.
Well, I think that's exactly what I see happen with AI, doing a subjective audit, and so, or you can label it risk assessment, right? So let's do a comparison here, right? When you walk into a dealership right now and you go out and you buy yourself a new car and you get insurance. Let's just say you go into a new insurance company, right? Like, let me try a new insurance company, whatever insurance company it is, Geico, State Farm. Immediately, they're going to do a risk assessment, right? Have you had any accidents within the past 3 years? That's normally the first question that an insurance company always asks, right? So risk assessment, number one. Then they're going to ask about your car, right? Do you have an alarm system? Do you have aftermarket stuff in that car? How many miles are you going to drive per year? Have you had any summonses within the past 18 months, 3 years, depending on the insurance company? There's a risk assessment, right? How old are you? What's your credit score? Those things, right? So is that going to happen as a cop also? And what these things could be part of a risk assessment. We don't know. That's why I said, what is this going to look like? Is it going to be, hey, have you had any CCRBs within the past 3 years? Obviously, that's definitely going to be, right? Have you had any complaints? How many TRIs have you generated in the past 18 months, right? That's going to be, to me, that would be a flag or a risk assessment for an insurance company. When you drive your radio motor patrol cars, do you have alarm systems in there? Do you have ballistic protection? Do you have, what type of equipment do you have in there, right? These are other risk assessments. What type of firearm do you carry? How many have you been involved into a shooting? How old are you? What's your health condition? So all these risk assessments will affect your premiums. There's no doubt about it. We see it when you get vehicle insurance, if you're getting life insurance, right? Do you smoke? Are you a smoker? These are, right? What's your age? Because the insurance, ultimately, the job of the insurance is to find ways to not have to pay you, right? And if they have to pay you, if you're high risk, well, then you pay high premiums, right? So it definitely correlates. So I do think that this is why I agree with you, Marlon. I think everything's going to AI. I do think that for these insurance companies, it would be beneficial that they have an AI subjective risk assessment audit system when it comes to insuring a cop. And think about other things like this that, as simple as, okay, let's say you're Captain Wilson. But let's say you're Captain Wilson, but let's just say you're a police officer. And you decide to tell the public that, hey, Zohran Mamdani is not my mayor. And Zohran Mamdani, and you feel all Democrats are nonsense. And now you're in the 1, 2, 3. But now they transfer you to the 4-4 precinct. What happens to your insurance? Right? That was not your choice. Like, Marlon, John, it's a great rhetorical scenario. Marlon decides to go to a precinct. His insurance goes up. But what if you are transferred, right? Involuntarily. You're transferred. What happens to your insurance now? Your insurance company finds out you've been transferred to a high-risk precinct. You've been transferred. You have to drive now another hour and a half to work. You were working days, now you're working nights. Is that go to the risk assessment as far as what hours you work? Again, what does this look like? We have no idea. These are a lot of questions to be had here.
Yeah, and again, I think, when you're looking at any insurance product, that's what you want to look at. Like, what in fact am I insured for? Monon Samurai says, he gives, thanks for the super chat. He says, you think insurance companies are going to insure some police officers who are grossly obese, can't shoot, can't run, and can't drive? Good luck with that. We all know those are walking liabilities at the precinct. Well, see, again, I think that's a different type of insurance that we're talking about, right? We're talking about insurance solely for litigation, right? Could some of those factors be part of the risk assessment? Possibly. I don't know how they're going to get access to your range records, so I doubt it. But definitely your driving record would come into account. Like, let's just say you were involved in an accident. You ran someone over. The city paid out $1 million on your behalf, right? There was litigation that went on for several years because of that. That's definitely going to be a factor in your legal risk assessment, because that's ultimately what the insurance companies are doing, right? They're there to cover you in catastrophic times, but ultimately, like, their assessment is like, well, chances are you never have to use this. If chances are you're going to use this, then you're basically going to fund what you're being insured for anyway, so that you don't have it saved in the bank. And I think when we talk about cops, they talk about average American doesn't have a month's mortgage, or a month, like they'll go under in a month if they're not getting paid. Basically, they'll go bankrupt in a month. And I think when I just flashing back to all the cops I know and their financial situations, and they're like, it's probably even worse for cops, because they're always on the fly. They never have any money. Not every cop, but a lot of cops, especially young cops when they're starting out on the job, definitely don't have any money. So, I'm not saying that insurance is a scam, and I'm not saying that maybe currently you shouldn't be looking at a secondary policy. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, what does this do to policing? Like, what is it? What is the effect on policing now? Now you're worried about your own insurance, right? So, like, there's a beautiful beach by me. It's Ponte Vedra Beach. It's gorgeous, right? It's like the Hamptons. It's like the Hamptons of Florida, in my opinion. Beautiful. Beach is eroding. Homes are about 1.5 million along the beach. They go up to in the 30 millions, right? They go up way higher than that, right? But you can't get insurance for those homes. You cannot be insured. So basically, if I go by that 1.5, and there was a beautiful lot I was looking at too. It was like, it wasn't a lot of money, the lot. But basically, if I went to buy that lot, let's say it was 800,000 at the time. So I could buy the lot. Probably that lot anywhere else in that area should probably be about $2 million. The reason it's not is I can't get insurance. So whatever I build, I'm eating. Shore comes up, state says, you know what? We're not gonna rebuild that beach. We're not gonna fix the erosion on that beach. I'm screwed. I'm out of my money. And so like this is the type of assessment now, the same assessment that someone's gonna make in real estate areas where you can't get insurance. That's the same type of assessment that cops are now gonna make. Am I gonna go into this unit where I'm not gonna be able to be insured? Am I gonna go into this unit where my risk factor is up super high and the insurance companies are telling me my risk factor is super high? Am I going to go and partake in this type of police work that my risk factors go up and my insurance company doesn't want me to have, and it's going to cost me more money in the back end? And I think we all know what that answer is. And the answer is absolutely not. If you're smart, if you're paying attention, if you're worried about your fiscal situation, your financial health, and you should be, because this will affect your children, this will affect your marriage, this will affect your relationship, your financial health will affect your mental health and your physical health. So you should be very highly concerned about these things. If you're not, it's probably because you're a 23-year-old kid and you think you could run through brick walls. But soon enough, life's going to smack you in the face and you're going to realize that, in fact, you can't. So if you're worried about that, what you're going to do is step back from policing even further than the proactive approach that we had to policing. And now what happens at that time is the fact that, right now I still say that, we could turn the city around in a short time, in only a few years, right? Really putting the sense of urgency that Chief Anamone spoke about last night, how they were trying to instill that sense of urgency back into cops to like really clean up the city. And I think right now, the way the city sits is that could happen if you have good governance, good leadership in the NYPD, and good governance coming out of City Hall and coming out of the state. I think those things could happen. But once you put in factors like this, no good governance could fix this. It's over. Proactive policing is dead.
Well,
Oh, really, Marlon?
What happened to Marlon?
I have no idea, dude.
That was strange.
That was a Starlink.
Yeah. My Starlink's been pretty good lately.
That was a Starlink moment. He definitely clicked himself off, though.
I just want to say, before
yeah,
Marlon,
no, it wasn't. It was that was weird.
that was welcome back, brother. I just want to say before you go back, LOJK9443, yo, thank you so much, brother. Says, such a joke that I'm learning this from a podcast and nobody from my union. Yeah. Spot on, brother. Go ahead, Marlon. Welcome back, man.
Yeah.
There's a landscape. They cut the line.
Well, I was gonna talk about you guys brought up some points here that I wanted to talk about, like the range data. How will they get that? I think, what's stopping the department from releasing that? Or putting all of that on the department portal, the one that tells you your arrest numbers. I don't see why. I don't see anything really stopping the department from releasing that info too. Everything you do is you work for the government. I think there's very few details that the city would withhold unless there's politics involved. Like, for instance, us not being able to see Eric Adams, his record as a cop, right? That's all politics. Okay. The reason why you can't foil that information is because, politics, right? But I don't see any reason why the city wouldn't release that info, especially if they now could defer liability to the cops themselves. It doesn't matter if you got if you barely pass the range, it ain't their problem no more. If you get into if you get into an incident that goes sideways, you now have insurance for it. It's your problem now. So the other thing is I wanted to tap on is this is Tesla, right? I had a Tesla car. I had a Model 3 for a couple of years, right? And when I found out Tesla was coming out with insurance, I thought, oh, this is gonna be great. I can get cheaper insurance. This is great. Yeah. Now I'm not a risky driver, right? I don't, I've gotten into accidents, but there's only one that was actually my fault, and that was like 28 years ago, right? But still, I thought this was gonna be great. But then you read the fine details about it. And one of those details is you get a safety score, right? And Tesla is monitoring everything you do in the vehicle and giving you a grade. So if you make a lane change without signaling, there's a point, that's gonna affect your score. If you speed, you know, if traffic is flowing past the speed limit, right, and you following traffic, right, that's a deduction of your safety score. So is that gonna adjust my premium too? You know, everything you're doing is being tracked and monitored, and that is a problem. Okay, you even if you think, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna get cheaper insurance for that. This is a problem because now everything you do as a cop is going to be monitored on that AI, and every little nuance of the profession is going to be monitored. Okay, so this is how you get to a social credit score society, and that doesn't sound like fun to me. Okay, so yeah, yeah. So I have more, but we'll talk about it when I go around again. So
Yeah, I mean, look, we all understand insurance because we have insurance in other facets, right? We have vehicle insurance. If you're in retirement, I would assume most people have life insurance. There's various insurance, right? So and one thing we haven't discussed really is what happens if you're like an uninsured motorist, right? What if you're uninsured? What if, and it could happen. What if there's insurance companies say, just as John was saying earlier, you're Eric Dibb. You're the most complained cop. You're still employed by the NYPD. Who's actually going to insure me? Unless, even if the premiums, they offer premiums that are astronomical, most likely, most insurance companies will just deny insurance altogether. Just, we're not insuring you. So what happens? Who's going to step in? Will the union step in? Or are you just screwed? Someone asks here, would you be fired? I don't think you'd be fired. What? I mean, why would the police department care? You're still employable. It's just your burden, right? And I mean, if you have to pay, the police department doesn't have to pay. And then what about co-pays? What would that look like? Or deductibles? If you need representation for an incident, are there co-pays for every time your lawyer meets with you somewhere? Or maybe if your lawyer meets with you virtually, is there a copay? And what about deductibles? What type of deductibles will it be? Just like for a car, $500, $1,000. Will that be a deductible if there's an actual payout on your behalf? So this goes back to the question I said earlier: is what will this look like? So ultimately, and I agree, John. I don't think it's a bad thing to have insurance as a secondary, as a protection. I don't think it's a bad thing to have legal protection plan in addition to what you already have. But with that being said, to be solely based on insurance on the behalf of the cop to carry that burden, the profession is already in complete decline. This will just diminish it altogether. How will you? And I said, unfortunately, cops will still do it. But the reality is, how will you actually do it? And there will be, to do intrusive police work, no doubt about it, Marlon. There's going to be an assessment, and I do believe that they'll have all the data on you. I think that will be the agreement with insurance companies. Say, hey, we can insure you, but we need all your data. And there'll be a profile, in my opinion, on every cop, and that profile will have every score, how you scored on tests, how you scored at different trainings. What was your evaluation at the end of the year by your sergeant? How many arrests did you make that year, right? Maybe there's a threshold. If you're involved in more arrests, I would assume, right, doing intrusive police work, if you're involved in more arrest situations, I would assume that premiums would be higher for you, that threshold would be higher because you're involved in more incidents, right? If you drive your car 12, 15,000 miles a year, we can assume that your car insurance would be more than someone that barely takes it out of the garage that is driving an antique. Well, it's the same thing for cops. If you're out in an office and you don't have much face-to-face interaction in comparison to the cop that's out there, a hard charge doing intrusive police work because they wanted to get to a detective squad, well, then they're going to be more of a liability. Their premiums will be higher. And ultimately, the insurance company might not want to insure them, right? I mean, what if there are scenarios, well, if you pull out your firearm, God forbid, and you shoot someone with a knife, you're not insured because you were supposed to pull out your taser first. I mean, we don't know that, and you might laugh. It sounds silly, but my experience in Hurricane Sandy is, why wouldn't the flood insurance cover the damage to my appliances when it was caused by the hurricane? Instead, they would have covered the contents, and the homeowner's insurance sent me back to flood insurance. And maybe the same thing will be with car insurance. Will there be? Well, I'm sorry, not car insurance. Liability insurance for cops. Will be there one company? Will we insure you for force? Right? Could there be another company that we insure you for potential testimonies? Be another one that insures you when you're behind the wheel of a car. So we don't know. It could very well be that way, that you need to carry several types of policies. Right? This is my force policy, and this is my policy for complaints. So I think that's something that can happen. We just don't know what this will look like. Hey, I got my force policy through, rhetorically speaking, Geico, and I have my complaint policy through State Farm. Could that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, why wouldn't the city play along with it? I don't see why they wouldn't, because again, look at the profits. Okay, the state has a budget gap problem right now. State and the city has a budget gap problem. So why wouldn't they work with Wall Street to boost that industry, to boost a new sector?
Yeah, and that's ultimately what it looks like to me. It looks like a huge grift. You know, what's the concern for Althea Stevens, Natasha Williams, and Farrah Lewis? What is their concern where they believe that cops need to carry liability insurance if it's not alleviating any of the liability from New York City or the state? Why'd they just draft this legislation? You know, because look, at the end of the day, you know, we know to be that there's a lot of frivolous lawsuits, and we know that it's true that New York City's Corporation Council settles on the majority of these lawsuits because they operate under the ideology that it's cheaper to pay out than to go to court. Right? And again, I don't think that that's true. I think if you look at a lot of the things that Corporation Council and the city of New York do, it's insane. They'll pay out a perpetrator who has a completely frivolous lawsuit that literally should go absolutely nowhere. They'll pay that individual out, but you'll have a cop that they wronged that they owe $15,000 to, and they'll spend upwards of $800,000 in legal defense. Like, does that make sense? Isn't that the case that you should just be like, pay this guy the $15,000 and let's go? No. Well, we're gonna pay $800,000 in legal fees and keep looking for legal fees. And by the way, I'm not making that up. I'm not going to get into the details of what that is, but like, that is how incompetent the city of New York City is. Like, that is how, like, that's one of those ones where you're like, you know what? Before we even get to that $15,000 threshold, just pay that one out. That's ridiculous. Like, we don't even need to fight this. Just pay the $15,000 out. That's stupid. But you have perps that want $100,000 and they're giving them $25,000, even though they have no claim to nothing. And their case is completely frivolous, you know? And when you look at these COVID cases, it's even crazier, man, because they hired these $1,000 an hour law firms. So the cost that they're paying millions of dollars a year to fight a case that they could have settled and it would have been done. And really, it could have been settled like right away. People could have went back to work, and the cost would have been almost nothing. Would have been almost nothing, you know. And so that's the problem. And I think when you look at the risk assessment, because I've told you guys before, when that conversation came up, a lot of my friends are in insurance and they're pretty high up there in insurance, and I presented each one of them with this idea of creating a policy, a secondary policy for police officers. And they're with the big boys. And they were like, absolutely not. I got them all the data that they asked for. They were like, it just looks like too much of a risk environment. It looks like too much of a risk environment. And a lot of my friends do a lot of different type of insurance where they insure cargo that's going over or internationally, right? Cargo that's coming in and out of America on ships. They insure cruise ships. And like the majority of those things go off without a hitch, right? Like there are lawsuits that arise from each cruise ship trip. Yeah, sure. Somebody falls, somebody gets food poisoned, somebody, whatever happens on that trip. But I remember specifically the catastrophic event, and I believe it happened in Italy when the cruise ship sank. And I remember like the insurance industry was in a like, oh my God, like what are we doing? Because like that cruise ship wasn't just insured by one company. It was insured by multiple companies that had different pieces of the insurance, right? Like this week, we provide the liability insurance for this. We provide the liability insurance for that. All different companies to get this one cruise to go out. And I think that's what Eric's alluding to, is that like, you might have to have different insurance companies for different aspects of your profession.
Yes.
And so, and when that catastrophic event comes, what does that look like? And I think what we're talking about here is ultimately just your legal defense. I do not believe that any of these insurance companies, and I could be wrong, but I do not believe that any of them are offering you indemnification, meaning that if a payout arises as a result of this litigation, will you still be held personally responsible for it? And I believe the answer is yes. I believe the answer to that is yes. Now, could you have an umbrella for all the stuff you have, and could that possibly protect you? Yes, but there's a lot of things that haven't been worked out and discussed. And again, what does it look like when the city of New York settles with the person that's suing you? How does that look for your litigation, your civil litigation case, when the city of New York already admitted guilt and already said that they deemed you XYZ, they substantiated you on a CCRB or on a use of force, or they deemed it outside of guidelines, and so ultimately, I think even when you go to access that policy, you might hit a lot of roadblocks, just dependent on the way the city operates, just to even get the legal defense that you paid for.
Well, I think there'll be limits of coverage, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think this, by the way, if the stuff that I was saying flies over your head, viewers, and I noticed a lot of this stuff is complicated too. And the only reason I know about it is because I've been following like the blockchain industry and all that stuff. So I see how they'll be able to exchange the data easily. And just following that led me down the rabbit hole of all of this stuff. But this is part of technocracy, okay? And it's 100% the society we're headed to. And you see their obsession with building all these data centers. This is why you're going to need all these data centers throughout the country, because just because of how intertwined AI will be in a lot of these industries, including the insurance industry. But yeah.
I'm curious also, just like for an insurance company, if you go to a defensive driver program, you get a discount. If you have a good driving record, do you get a discount? Will the same thing apply to this insurance? Like if you haven't made an arrest in 3 years, would you get a lower premium? Right?
If you're juju, you get a lower premium.
Like you're doing great. You haven't had any police interaction in 3 years. It's great.
What if you just lock up women after having a glass of wine with their
right?
friends?
Exactly. Hey, listen, we should ask somebody who knows that work pretty well.
I can make a point that this already happens within the job itself. Think of it for a second. If you're that guy who's been in the office all the time, are you more I think you might be certain units might look at you more favorably than the guy who has so many CCRBs and so many lawsuits because he's
But
in
you're not
say,
tainted.
crime or a gun unit right now.
Yeah, you're not tainted, right? You
Yeah.
you come in
Yeah.
with squeaky clean. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, let's be honest. I think you're spot on about AI because insurance companies, they're not public safety experts. They're financial experts, right? And their ultimate goal is how to financially save money. That's what insurance companies do, right? That's what if God forbid you're into a car accident and the insurance auditor comes out, their goal is to analyze how not to pay you, right? And they're going to pay you if they have to, but they'll try to find every loophole possible. So you're really fighting the house on this one. Right? I always say the house always wins, right? When you play at the casino, I love to play, have a good time, but the house always wins. You have to know that. You go out, right? Unless you're a compulsive gambler, you actually think you're going to win. You go out gambling, you're probably going to lose. If you go out a couple of days, you go out to Vegas, you go somewhere to gamble. You go out to Atlantic City, the house always wins, but you go there to have fun. Same thing with the insurance company. The insurance company understands the loopholes while you don't. And the same thing could be for police. As I said, I'm just rhetorically speaking, making fun out of it. But the reality is they could say that. Well, we'll not go to identify you shot and killed this man with a knife, but you never tried to apply with the taser. Maybe that will be in the fine print. Did you try the taser first? So we don't know. This is all up in the air. And the insurance companies, unless there's some type of law implemented of what the insurance companies could do, to my knowledge, insurance companies could write whatever they want. They could say you have to apply that taser 3 times before you fire and shoot someone, and say, well, we're not going to identify you. You didn't try the taser. They're not public safety experts. They're financial experts. So it really doesn't matter. I don't think they have that way and say, well, it's really dangerous, a knife. So I understand that the cop had to shoot. It's just going to be in fine print so that they don't have to pay. This is ridiculous. And ultimately, I think we discussed this, but who pays the liability insurance? Does the union actually front that? Or does the cop actually pay it from their own paycheck? Is that going to be the next thing on your paycheck? All the contributions you make, because when you're brand new in the academy, they want you to donate to every organization possible. And they make it seem, it's only $1. It's only $1. By the time it's over, it's $50. By the time you end up donating, fine, it's nice. But you're a brand new cop, you're a rookie cop, you're making shit money. And even right now, people, cops are making good money. In relation to the cost of living in New York, they're not making great money. Just enough to scrape by. Not enough to buy a home. And now on top of that, you have your union dues. You have your tax deductions. You have deductions for your pension. And now you have a premium for an insurance company. And hey, you're a brand new cop. You can only afford the $1,000 deductible. And now, God forbid, you're involved into an incident. Where do you get that $1,000 from? Who's paying that deductible? Is the cop shelling out deductible personally, or is the union going to step in and pay those deductibles? These are things I want to know. That's why it'd be nice to hear from the union. Maybe we could have a union representation come on this podcast, this network, and tell us so we can get the word out to the cops and let them know what they're potentially faced against.
They'll come on. Yeah, Mo, don't worry about it. We're going to go to our friends in Albany, Don't worry about it, Mo. Look, ultimately, end of the day, so the city council bill isn't really a bill. It's a resolution. They're calling on the legislator to pass it, the state legislator. Your weak, soft assemblymen that are Republicans aren't saying a fucking word about this. The moderate Democrats aren't bringing this up at all. They're not saying a word because in the state, in Assembly and in the Senate, there is a one-party overwhelming majority. It's a super majority. So more than likely, this is going to pass. And the question now becomes, do you foot this bill? Or is this something that is collectively bargained on the part of New York City? Or is this going to fall on your union? And if it falls on your union, you know what that looks like. They're going to break down, get these individual policies. Yeah, my cousin Frankie from Long Island, he's got this great insurance, Mo. Don't worry about it. We're just going to raise your dues $200 a month. Don't worry about it. And, that's ultimately the real question, I think, here. I don't think the question is if this passes. My question is when it passes, who foots the bill? Is it the city? Is it the union? Is it the cop? Because if it's the union, I'll tell you right now, you're going to get shit coverage. You're going to get shit coverage. Your coverage is going to look like my dental plan, my LBA dental plan. Thanks a lot, Lou. Appreciate it. It's going to look like my eyeglass plan. Thanks a lot, Lou. I appreciate it. Yeah, got my buddy down in Hap Hawk. He's going to get you. He's going to hook you up, Mo. And then he's going to come to the precinct and he's going to try to sell you another policy. You know, and so I think here's the thing. You know, I know there's a lot of people that hate insurance companies. I personally don't, because at least I got some of my money back on Sandy. You know what I mean? That's what I paid for. That's what I paid for. You know what I mean? That's why you pay insurance, you know, is so that you don't have to foot that entire bill. So, but there's loopholes, and you have to understand the fine print. You have to understand what you're buying. You have to understand the product. So I think ultimately, if it falls on the union, you're going to get what you get. You're going to have the PBA has one, the SBA has one, the LBA has a different one, the CEA has a different one, and we're all going to look like a bunch of jerks. That's my thing. It's where it's like, if it ultimately falls on the union, it's ultimately falling on you. And then that's the time, I believe, that, you know, you should be seeking to get your own insurance. And that is the time, I think, that at this point, you should start to realize that, you know what, your union is basically writing themselves out of actually doing anything. They're no more than just a fraternity for you at this point. And you are acting as free agents. So like I said, I'm vetting a bunch of companies. I'll figure out at some point what those policies are like, what it will look like for an NYPD officer, and the difference between which ones are good and which ones aren't. You know, and look, Marlon, I know you don't like AI, but this is the way. If I ran an insurance company right now, I'm going to use AI to figure out. I'm going to use AI and then human analysis, and then human looking over those data points that we put into that system to figure out our risk factor and what this product should cost. This is the business. This is what it is, right? Like what should that be? And that's just the world we live in. You know the old saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. Well, don't hate the game either, because we're playing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have no choice, bro. It is what it is. This is the way the world is moving. And you know, the cost of business is going up to be a police officer. That's what it is. The cost of you being a police officer, and not only the cost of business to be a police officer, but your risk liability is up significantly. And if you're an NYPD cop, you're in the highest risk assessment environment in the entire world. Congratulations. Welcome to the greatest show on earth.
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, Jan. There, you know, I don't think the coverage will be shit. I think this is going to be there are going to be certain companies giving this coverage, and I don't think it's going to be like your mom and pop, you know, some fly by night insurance company in Long Island or something that's going to be doing any of this. It's all corporate. It's all tied to the agenda, and it's all tied to AI. And here's the problem with all this. Corporations love progressivism, right? I've said before, I think it's all a cover for you know, things like austerity and you know, and a lot of Wall Street stuff. You look at DEI, that stuff all came from like the World Economic Forum and BlackRock, you know? So what's my point in bringing that up? Well, my point is that think how much they've been trying to infuse DEI and progressivism with the police department. Now you got another way to do it, you know, because now for instance, if you're white and a male officer, do you think you're going to be paying more in insurance? I think you will be, right? I think you definitely will be, right? Are you female and black or female and Asian? Are you going to be paying less of a premium? Yeah, probably. You're going to get beneficial treatment, you know. And if you think if you think this through, you can see how this is going to be very much a problem, because if you police along the edicts of progressivism and all these BS videos that we've seen come down through strategic initiatives, and that you guys have to watch videos for daily, right? And we all know this has nothing to do with policing, okay? Because when you're watching a lot of these videos about let's say you know uh, a lot of these videos about sexual identity. What does that have to do with policing? What do we care who you are? Okay. Okay. What does that got to do with your job? Right. But you're still having to watch those videos. Well, now you imagine you don't watch those videos. Are you going to get a deduction somewhere? No. If you don't refer to someone by their pronouns when you talk to them on the street and the body camera picks that up, are you going to get a deduction? Are you going to have to get a increase in premium? Well, that's the society we're heading into. And again, this is why I say this is a bad idea. And I have no problem with AI. Okay. I have no problem with AI. But if AI has to exist on a marketplace by itself, then we have a choice to use it, you see? And then AI adoption becomes, it falls into market dynamics of supply, demand. But we're not getting that, right? We're not getting that. We're getting government forcing the AI onto us. And that's what I have a problem with. Okay. I have a problem with anything the government is trying to force us on, because the government is enforcing a monopoly, the government is acting like the arm of corporations. Instead, I want the AI to function as another product in the market where its adoption is driven by the market forces and supply and demand.
So I think you're spot on with that, Marlon. I don't see small insurance companies being able to actually insure a police officer. It's just too much liability for that company, and it would actually, in my opinion, put those small companies out of business. We're talking about close to 30,000 police officers, right? And I say close to 30. I know they say it's 35,000, but in my based on my observations, and we know, I would say that the police department has less than 30,000. But even with those numbers, the payouts sometimes are astronomical. I was involved in a case with Jose LaSalle that paid almost $1 million. So just to give you some numbers that I researched here, insurance industry data cited by multiple legal insurance shows average bodily injury claim paid out around $24,000 in recent data. And I have some data here. Average property damage payout is around $5,000 to $6,000. Moderate injuries, sometimes $20,000 to $75,000. Serious injuries requiring surgery and car accidents, $100,000 plus. Catastrophic injuries and wrongful deaths could reach millions. Now, when it comes to policing, many cases end up in the millions quite often. So it would have to be large insurance companies. And if this does go into effect, and I do think this is going to effect, we don't want a regular insurance company like Geico or State Farm. It would have to be a specialized law enforcement insurance firm. And as I said before, because insurance firms are not public safety experts, they're financial experts. They're experts in figuring out the loopholes so that insurance companies don't have to pay, that the liability is not on them. Obviously, ultimately, in many situations, they have to pay, but the job of an insurance company is to find ways to not pay. And this is just going back to small companies. I don't think small companies can handle the burden. This would have to be large firms, with people who have police backgrounds. Now, that kind of ties into what you're saying, Maul. And the reason why I say that is because once we get people into police backgrounds, that ties into connections with politicians, into connections with AI, into connections with real estate, into connections with real estate developers. So there's a lot of money to be made here. Because what we haven't heard from Farrah Lewis and Thea Stevens is ultimately, what is the balance? If this proposal is passed, how does that make the street safer, other than you just want to attack the police? And why do you want to attack the police in this situation? What does it do? Does this change the interactions that white police officers have with black and brown potential subjects in the street? Does it change the disproportionate rate? Does it change anything about the gang database that they're also pushing to abolish? No. So ultimately, I agree. I think this does funnel through AI. I think AI is everything. But I do think that AI is a powerful tool. I think AI is like a car. And in my opinion, AI could be an amazing tool if used properly, could be a very effective tool in the situation. But just like a car can be used as a weapon. And the same thing goes with AI. I anticipate that AI in this would be extremely subjective, and the insurance companies could make this, they could get police experts to say, hey, put this in a direction that's so subjective that they create these loopholes that they don't have to pay. As I said, as silly as it sounds, that, hey, before you fire your firearm, you've had to have tried the taser. And who's to say they can't do that? We don't know yet. We don't know. The insurance companies can do whatever they want until there's some type of laws passed that curtail what the insurance companies can do. That's ultimately what we're facing. So this could be the demise of policing. Unfortunately, cops, and I don't mean it to be offensive, I include myself in this, and you guys might, we walked stupidly because we did what we're told, even though knowing that, even myself, I really believed with an overzealous civilian complaint review board that eventually the police department would step in and say, hey, we have to help this guy. That help never came. I'm sure, John, you believe that, hey, there's no way they would let me retire with all this knowledge I have. I was in internal affairs. I did all these different facets in the police department. They're going to let me retire. I thought the same thing. All the guns I'm getting, there's no way they'll let me retire. I'm sure Marlon never thought, damn, if I ask a question about something that's going to be injected into my body, that they would actually terminate me. And sure enough, here we are.
Yeah, so I just want to go back because you guys keep saying that I said that they were going to use small insurance companies. I didn't say that. I said they were going to use different insurance companies, right? And they're going to use their cousin Frankie to sell it to you. So it's either two things are going to happen, right? If it comes out, if the city's not footing the bill, either two things are going to happen. I said, you're either going to have to buy it individually. And if you have to do it individually, you're going to have Frankie or Ralph. He's going to come to the precinct and he's going to be backed by a rather large insurance company. And Frankie's going to sell you a product. And that product is going to be inferior to what that company actually offers, because it's going to drive up Frankie's profit margins and it's going to help whatever the backdoor deal that was made between your union board and Frankie. Right. And so,
that makes sense.
You know, or the other thing, it's going to be done in the dark, and it's going to be a deal that's going to be worked out with these different insurance companies, each going to have unique different policies. They might even have a different policy using the same company, depending on the deal that was made about the amount of people. Well, you know, the PBA got the better deal because they got more members, you know, and Pat Hendry's a scumbag, and Pat Hendry's going to say Scott Monroe's a scumbag, and Scott Monroe's going to say this guy's a scumbag. And they're all going to have different levels of policy because that'll all be done behind closed doors, right? And so ultimately what I'm saying is I don't believe your best interests will be had, and I don't believe your best interest is being had when it comes to the policies at all, whether it's your healthcare, whether it's your dental, whether it's your eye. Those are not what traditionally the unions care about, because if they did, we'd all have the same eye and dental. We'd all have it. You know what I mean? We'd all have it. We'd all have that same eye and dental plan, and we'd have a very good plan, instead of a bullshit plans that we have. Like, I don't even use my eye coverage because it's such bullshit. I can't use it anywhere. Can't use it anywhere for my kids. It's like a waste. I mean, so I don't even use that ever. And then the dental, it's like, it doesn't cover anything. It's ridiculous. And so ultimately, like, what I'm saying is you have to know the game. You're in it. You have to understand the rules of the game, and you have to play it better than everybody else. And how are you going to do that? You're going to understand what it is, in fact, you need to have, what, in fact, it is, the rules that you're going to be guided by. And then you have to look at the best policy for the best money. Because, you know, you could go anywhere to go buy anything, and the guy's going, this is the best deal. This is the Cadillac. This is the Cadillac of police liability insurance, you know? And then you start to look at it. Well, hey, yo, I did a little research, and this plan doesn't have the waiver on it, but like for $2 more, I could get the waiver. Yeah, I wish you would have talked to me first, kid, before you looked at that, because, you know, there's a reason for that, and I can't really get into that now, and I'm working it out with your unions and all that. Because what I'm saying is, like, there will be a lot of backdoor deals made, and it will be a lot of deals made to sell you out. And so, yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be a big boy because there's no way you could insure anyone in the NYPD without having billions of dollars behind you. Because I mean, this is what they're paying out each year, hundreds of billions of dollars in lawsuits. Now, whether they're frivolous or not, that's another question. That's another show for another day. And you know, in my contention, the majority of money that's paid out is frivolous. The majority of cases that they fight, they should actually be paying out because the city actually did something wrong. And you know, and I'm willing to redo that analysis and have that discussion with anybody, because it's just what I've seen. And I see sheer incompetence coming out of Corporation Council and the decisions of New York City Mayor's office and the decision of those people that lead the NYPD and the decision making of those people that lead the unions. Your best interests are not being had. And ultimately, Marlon, I think we do agree that the interests are business interests, right? We're falling into a form of social corporatism, which is being pushed by both the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the reason why that's being pushed, by the way, is also that the GDP is dependent on that AI spending right now. We don't make anything in this country. And that's why when you saw Trump go to China last week, he was kissing Xi's ass left and right. And it's because we're dependent on China for everything, including chips for our bombs, right? And for us, they want to bring it over here, the production over here, but that's going to take at least 10 years to get up to speed, you know, to where China is now, let alone where they'll be themselves 10 years from now. These are all the byproducts of the older generations selling us out and financializing the economy so that, you know, they sold out all the jobs overseas. They destroyed the Rust Belt, moved all the production to the east into China, and then have our economy now dependent on financialization and Wall Street. This is the end result, where all our big cities like New York are dependent on Wall Street financialization. Hell, the entire New York State depends upon Wall Street right now. But John is correct in that our best interests aren't going to be served. I think this entire agenda doesn't serve our best interests. Okay. And one of the, you know, Eric mentioned the word subjective, which we've talked about before in terms of AI, because we talked months ago about AI pricing and how subjective that is and how subjective punishment is in the NYPD. Well, discipline is right now. Right. But this just leads to more subjectivity in policing, right? Because I can foresee a future where, think of it for a second, right? They're gonna look at if you're a white male cop, they're gonna look at you. Are you a higher risk if you're patrolling a poor black neighborhood? Are you at risk to get more CCRBs and to be looked at as the enemy, considering you know the a lot of the anti-cop rhetoric that's in a lot of these neighborhoods? Yeah, you will be. So what I see happening is more subjective policing where, you know, black cops for black neighborhoods, you know, uh, um, are you? Is it going to be a problem if you know, a masculine male policing, say, the West Village? Could they look at that as a problem that you may get more CCRBs? Maybe you don't know how to interact properly with the residents. Yeah, I don't see why all these things won't come out of it, because again, the insurance companies are looking to pay less money. And would the city play along with all of this? Of course they would. Why wouldn't they? Because again, the city wants Wall Street to be as profitable as it can. They want that particular market to be very profitable, so that, you know, there are more insurance and there are more companies that are going to enter it. And they're also going to want to keep the attrition rate, not have a high attrition rate. And if cops, you know, if cops are going to have to pay a higher premium working in certain neighborhoods, then there's a likelihood that that cop isn't going to be a cop for much longer. And then the department will have to deal with sudden departures from the job itself. So I think everybody's going to play ball with this. The unions are going to play ball with it. The city's going to play ball with it. They're all incentivized to do that right now. And this is, again, in terms of interaction with the public, you're also going to get more subjective policing too, because, again, if a cop is likely to have a higher premium based upon a score that he gets, right? Then how does this change his interaction depending on who you are, who is he's interacting with? It absolutely will, So there's a lot to think about this, and again, it may fly over some of you guys' heads, but keep in mind here, we talk about things. We're the only ones talking about certain things, and you see it's going to happen months from now. We talked about the AI and drones long before it was really being talked about, and now almost every day on the news you're seeing some other department talking about drones again. We talk about things that you see in the mainstream news like months and years down the line. So for those of you who I saw a comment about tuning out. If you think that putting your head in the sand and pretending none of this is going to happen is the right way to go about it, you're absolutely wrong. Okay. So.
Yeah. To that moron who said that, I mean, if this is boring to you, that just means you don't care and you're not paying attention, or you just don't understand it. That's my perception of it. Because if you find this boring, you clearly don't care. Because I'm quite interested in this subject. We're interested. We want to get the information out there and have people start raising questions, which is what they should do. If you find this boring, you really just don't care. That's okay. If you don't find it boring, you don't have to watch. Tune out, watch something else. There's another show coming on 11:05 you can watch. But with that being said, let's talk about the Tanya Meisen holders of the world, right? Now, AI has to be implemented, right, by humans, right? AI gets their information from humans and gets their information from data. And that data could be extremely subjective. And if we have the Tanya Meisen holders as the underwriters for these insurance companies, well, the data says by 2030, they want 30% females in police departments by 2030. Because according to Tanya Meisen holder, we showed you the data on prior episodes, that females are less likely to engage in police confrontations without using violence, less likely to engage black subjects, right? Is that something we discovered, John? So definitely, who's going to be the underwriter for these insurance companies? And if it is AI, it is going to be subjective, in my opinion, from the Tanya Meisen holders of the world. Also, when it comes to these underwriters, how long is a policy going to be? Just like an insurance plan you have as a full auto, most of them are 6 months. Some plans are a year. But what happens if you have a policy for a year? Let's say a year policy, rhetorically speaking. We don't know what it looks like yet. And during that year, you're involved in a very controversial incident. Does that spike your premium? Does the insurance company immediately get notified that you're involved in a controversial incident? Maybe a shooting, maybe something with an emotionally disturbed person where someone's injured, or God forbid you're involved in a situation and there's a death in custody. What happens to your plan? And so this does change the face of policing. I've always said that no matter what, if you tie one arm behind cops, they're back the cops. If you give them 100 CCRBs, there'll still be a group of cops that go out there and do intrusive police work. But this really changed the game, because if that premium is coming out of your account and your liability because you're an anti-crime, or now the quasi-anti-crime, which is public safety or neighborhood police officers in a precinct, or you're the khaki pants, CRT, does that change the game? It could, because according to what we're saying here, as an underwriter could say, well, whether it's AR, if it's AI or an actually human element you speak to, the underwriter can say, well, you've made so many arrests, you're involved in these incidents, you're involved in doing intrusive proactive policing, you write summonses, you're involved in arrest situations, you are a more liability than the person sitting on one police plaza. So because of that, your premium, it's a higher premium. So you might say that this might be the only time in history where a cop says, damn, I literally can't do intrusive police work because I can't afford it. If I do intrusive police work, I can't afford it. So this actually may be the tool that behind city council that actually stops those interactions, those stop, question, possibly frisk interactions, those intrusive police work, because there may be cops who just say, I just can't afford these premiums. And if I'm involved in a situation that becomes controversial, well, then it goes up. My premium goes up. And so these are things that really have not been ironed out. These are questions we really need to think about. Here's Joe, 14%, or as we call him, Jack. Jack, don't you have somewhere to be? I know damn well you're Jack. Anyway, John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, no, just my last thing. Someone said you're going to have different premiums based upon where you work. Yeah. I mean, you have different premiums with your auto insurance based upon your zip code, right? Why? Because the risk factor is different. If you're in Borough Park, where there's no parking and you have a high Asian and Jewish community mix and they're all crashing into each other every day, and you're getting 300 accident reports a day coming out of the 66th precinct, 300 notifications to the insurance company, or you go to a zip code in Staten Island where, you know, there's not that many accidents a day. There's like 2 or 3 accidents reports a day, maybe 1 or 2 notifications to the insurance companies. Obviously, your premium would be lower in Staten Island than it would be if you live in Borough Park. You know, it's just the risk assessment. It would only make sense that would be the case. You know what I mean? If I don't see why the insurance companies wouldn't do that here when assessing risk. They're going to use all of those factors to assess risk. And it will change policing in the fact that, you know, you get notified now for GO15 as a police officer where you need to be interviewed by internal affairs or you need to be interviewed by the civilian complaint review board. What do? Oh, I got to call up my union and let them know I need representation, right? So what do you do if you're in a vehicular accident right now, right? We tell you, notify the police, get it documented, get it on record. Who's that second call you're making? It's your insurance company. Now you have this policy. I personally believe it will be written in there that, in fact, if you get any civilian complaints or you get any discipline issued, we need to know about it immediately. You need to notify your insurance company immediately. Why? Because that's going to affect your premiums. You're being sued. We need to know about that immediately. You know, you have allegations made against you. We need to know about that immediately. So now not only are you going to notify your union, you're going to follow that call up with a call to your insurance company. And ultimately, you're either going to get dropped or you're going to get a bill down the road. So, yeah, I really got nothing else on this topic. I don't know if any of you guys do. I know we're going 2 hours. So if anything else, you know.
I just don't understand how people don't understand that. Of course, there'll be a difference in premiums. I mean, let's just use logic and common sense. Let's take one cop who works in one police plaza, an administrative role. Let's take a cop, any precinct in the city. Doesn't have to be the busiest, any precinct. Which cop is more likely to be involved in an incident where the insurance company has to pay out? The cop at one police plaza getting paper cuts? The cop, you know, getting bent over in one police plaza in Madry's office? Or is it, you know, or is it the cop that's out there in the street engaging people? The cop that's out there making arrests? The cop that's out there writing summonses? I mean, let's just test logic and common sense. And obviously the insurance company is going to have a higher premium, a higher threshold for that cop that's actually doing police work. So this may be the actual pinnacle point in history where the city council actually starts to get the police to tail back and stop doing it, because they've tried every bill, right? Every bill, the How Many Stops Act, the diaphragm law, the chokehold ban, and the cops are still going out there doing their job. They sentenced, the court has sentenced Sergeant Eric Duran, and the cops are still going out there doing work. But this, money changes everything. Money can change people's personalities. Money can change relationships. Money can change your life. And this could actually change policing, because now you're a cop. And you know what? They said you can be a brand new cop. They said if I make another arrest in 6 months, my premium is going to be $1,000 a check. I can't afford this. So guess what? What are you going to do? You're not making any arrest. You're not doing anything. You're not going to interact with the public. This may be the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, Eric. I don't think city council is gonna tail back on anything. You know, I think that they've already made room for something to fill in that gap. And what's that item? That item is like the surveillance, you know, things like the Super Speeders Act, right?
Well, I didn't say they tail back. I never said that.
Well, oh no, I mean, well, you know, in terms of curtailing the enforcement action, right?
No, I mean, no. What I said was that they're trying to always enforce bills that curtail the cops from doing their job and actually doing enforcement, doing intrusive police work. So
I think I'm the point I'm trying to make is that I think this is where more tickets from things like speed cameras and all these sorts of cameras comes into play, because if cops are gonna tail back, like they
Agreed.
know, listen,
Agreed.
this might increase my premium. Well, there's already a solution that's going to be in place that's going to fix all that. We won't need cops to do car stops. We won't need cops to do traffic enforcement, because the camera will do that for us. Okay.
Yes.
You know,
Spot on.
and,
Spot on.
and
Brother.
the other thing about notifications, you won't have to call your insurance company and notify them. You know why? Because they'll be able to go online and pull this all up. This will all your information. I'm predicting right now that things like the NYPD portal, right, are going to increase the amount of information that's available. Now, I could already see if you've been disciplined. I just go on NYPD online and I go through the disciplinary the archive, right? So if I can get access to that, why can't the insurance companies? And by the way, the city has an open data portal, right? Where you can get the open data. You can take the data and just plug it into your software. Take the data, plug it into your spreadsheet, whatever. And you can do that right now, right? So you can automate all of that via AI. So the AI automatically aggregates that data, right, from all these databases, or just from the NYPDonline.com page, which has a lot of your info as a cop. They could just automate that information right then and there, and their databases will automatically adjust your scoring or add recommendations to increase your premium or lower your premium. So the tools are already in place. I don't think that you have to do anything. Your insurance company will already know. And to that extent, there's another unintended consequence of all of this, right? If the insurance companies already know you're getting a lawsuit, or you might be on the verge of being terminated or whatnot, right? I can also see a future where your other insurance companies are going to be like, oh crap, this guy's about to get fired here. Oh, we're gonna have to raise his premium on something else. I can already see the unintended consequences of such a society, where they already know you as a cop are getting in trouble, so therefore I'm going to raise your premium in something else. Okay, because look at you, you're an aggressive cop, you're reckless now. Okay, so why won't you be a reckless driver in your personal vehicle too? So this is a dangerous. The point out here is this is a dangerous road to go down. This is technocracy, and it's dangerous, to create a society where we're all getting scored, on every minutia, every minute aspect of being a human, and having human failings. So that's it for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's it, bro. I think we wrapped this home. I think we went around it every single way. I don't think there's anything else we got to really discuss. The Knicks game was unbelievable yesterday. I think that was one of the best playoff games I ever seen.
I gotta watch it, dude. I'm
hoping we go to the finals. I'm hoping that we make it to the finals, potentially win us a championship. Going to be hard to get through either Wemby or Gilgeous-Alexander in Oklahoma. So we'll see. But I mean, look, I got faith, bro. I got faith. I still haven't had a Knicks championship in my lifetime. So maybe this will be the year. I'm going with my man Brunson. So let's see what happens. I thought that the interview with Anamone was really good yesterday. There was no one had to preface that they were different than the show or anything. So I appreciated that. I thought you heard from a real solid, just straight up guy. He wasn't trying to sell you a bag of goods. He didn't have no political aspirations. There was no coding of his language. He just told it how it was. It was great stories. Came on 1964. And I thought that was a great show. And I think that's something that people should listen to, because that's what a leader sounds like. That's what a man sounds like. That was not a LinkedIn interview like the previous chief of department. where that was a LinkedIn. It was a LinkedIn interview on his part, and the way he answered those questions. Same thing with Allison Esposito. That was a LinkedIn interview. That was not a real person speaking there. That was a calculated response, political responses to all those answers and questions. So there's that. And I know yesterday there was a car that exploded by the Bull. We still have no details on that, whether or not that was a terrorist attack, what that was that an electric vehicle? But that looked very shady to me. Car exploding by the Bull. I'd like to know a lot more about that. I don't know anything at the moment. I haven't really inquired, but I definitely will keep an eye on that. Looking forward to Friday. I know Ron and Rob are going to be on tonight, 5:05 p.m. Eastern time or 17:05 military time. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be discussing Richie Taylor, Chief Richie Taylor, and what's all the stuff, the circumstances that are going around him. So you guys got anything else before we start reading the super chat?
Yeah, I just want to say the NYPD is touting historic lows for homicides, and yet we have a 75-year-old senior shot dead in a park in Queens. So just to give you a picture of really what's going on with crime out there, it's terrible. And I just want to read this one comment here. And I want you guys to try not to laugh. But Joseph, seriously, would a law that requires officers to have liability insurance hold up in court? I can't see the union not suing. That's like getting hired in a job to be a tow truck driver and then the job requiring you to pay for the car insurance. Joseph, seriously? You really think the unions are going to put a stop to this? Come on, Joseph, seriously.
Joe, where were you during the mandate, dude? Where were you during the mandate? We had a private attorney argue that they can't just midway go through and say that they can't just in the middle of your employment say no, you have to take this experimental thing. And the argument the city used and the judge upheld, the argument the city used was they said that at any moment in time, the city of New York could require you to have a PhD and require you to have it within 7 days. It's unreasonable, right?
7 days.
A lot of you guys have associate's degree. How are you getting a PhD in 7 days? Let's say you have a bachelor's or a master's degree. How are you getting a PhD in 7 days? You can't. But yet the judge ruled that, the city of New York could demand that of you in any profession, whether you're a teacher, you're a firefighter, you're a cop. They could ultimately demand that you have 7 days. And if you don't comply, they'll terminate you. And your union didn't even say a word about it because that came out from a private lawsuit. And I was talking to my attorney yesterday, and we were just shooting the shit, talking about something. And I was like, and we were talking about the unions, and I was like, what the worst thing about it was to me is that like I didn't even need them to foot the bill for me to put in an Article 78. The worst thing about it was that they didn't even tell me that there was an option that I had beyond this system. They never even told me what an Article 78 was. So they worked on behalf of the city. It was just like, nah, you're a smart kid. You could do what you got to do. And then you go and talk shit behind my back to Shell, who put shit out there that's false. And I know where it came from, Lou. So, I'm not a fucking idiot. But that's the worst shit. So if any of you guys think they can't do that, bro, 2020 showed me one thing. 2021, the mandate, they could do anything they want, and you all going to take it like good little girls. So that's
right.
it.
That's right. Yeah, spot on. I just want to say again, I want to reiterate. Thank you, Lou Anamone. Lou Anamone, if you watch this, great interview. I saw him sitting there. I saw a man who was just comfortable in his own skin. He wasn't placating to anyone. He just had an authentic conversation, smiling about his career. You can see the difference between him and other people who have been on this network who talk about their career, who are on a stage. On an audience stage, on an interview stage in comparison to Lou Anamone. Lou Anamone wasn't there looking for the next interview. He was just telling a story, and it was cool, man. It was real cool. So Lou Anamone, shout out to you, brother. That was cool. Class act, brother. Nolan says he had class act. Yeah, really, you were a class act, dude. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Someone that wasn't on a stage, that didn't use this platform to be on a stage to have an interview to look for the next opportunity. He told his story. That's what it's about. Let other people enjoy your story. Let your families enjoy it. So I know Lou Anamone's families could listen to that and enjoy that story he told. So thank you, brother.
Yeah, keep in mind, Joe, that the city and the state are also desperate right now. Okay, those budgets increase. New York State has again $7 to $10 billion budget gap next year, and it's going to be another gap the next year. So they're desperate for money. So again, all the pieces are in place for this thing to pass and for them to go through with it. You know.
No, yeah, it's a super majority, dude. I mean, they'll get through whatever they want to get through. Unless the Democratic establishment isn't behind it, then it doesn't get through. But, a big business is definitely behind it. So, they're going to create up and prop up a new sector. Yeah, I'm a betting man. Put it up on Kalshi, baby. I'll make the bet. I'll make the bet. I'll make the bet that this passes. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I mean, I'm doing my own risk assessment. I'm saying, get ready to get your liability insurance, people. So
Let's do it. Hey, listen, everybody, 2 hours and 15 minutes into it. It's a hell of a show today. I'm sorry someone found it boring because they just don't care or just don't understand it. But I think this was necessary. I think it was an awesome show. And so let's get to the coffee and donuts. Thank you. Like and share and subscribe. We appreciate it.
Chief Lukash says, best takeaway from last night. Don't be afraid to speak your mind. No, Chief, no, that's not what we do here on the Finest Filtered. We have to filter our dialogue here. We don't want to offend anyone, especially former guests, So, we're not going to ask Sohan Mondani any hard questions, and we're not going to post about him either. Because here on the Finest Filtered, we don't do that. We don't speak our mind.
I think Brother Rob got confused. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chief Anamone also said to stand up when you know you're right, too. So shout out to Chief Anamone.
I just want to say to retired Chief Anamone Lou, poor Lou didn't get the memo. He didn't know that you're supposed to be on an interview stage and get ready for the next assignment and placate Zohran Mamdani. So poor Lou didn't get that memo that you're supposed to stand up for moral principle. That you're not supposed to stand up for it. So unfortunately, I'm glad Lou didn't get the memo. So shout out to you, brother.
We're a dying breed here, We're a dying breed here, people. We're a dying
just think of which book you'd rather read, Rodney Harrison's or Chief Anamone when his book comes out.
Oh, definitely gonna read Anamone's book. I read Campese's book. I almost threw up in my mouth because I was like, there was one thing that stuck with me, like the entire book is like when I got sworn in Queens College, he talked about how Dowd said that that all of his corruption started because of his first free cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, in his book, he went like on this whole rant about how like that doesn't mean that you're a dirty cop, but he wouldn't take it because of whatever it is. And because it always bothered me because I'm like, at the time I wasn't even a cop, but like I go to the deli and like, I always looked out for the deli owner. Like, even after September 11th, like the cops were like summonsing his business. I'm like, he's an Indian dude. He's not a terrorist. Like, what are you bothering this guy for? Like, what do you, like, and so like he always appreciated that I stood up for him, or if the kids in the neighborhood were giving him a hard time, I chased them out, and that was before I was a cop. So every now and then he'd be like, nah, don't worry about it. Just coffee. Just take it, and I get gas there every day. So it's not like a big deal, It's like, what's the coffee really costing? 5 cents, And, and so I always thought that line was bullshit. And then I read the book and he contradicts exactly what he said to me in public on the stage in Queens College and said to thousands of other people. So I was like, I couldn't even read the book anymore. I was like, I got like halfway through it and I'm like, this is fluff, dude. This is me, how great I am. I'll give you some little details about myself, but not really the truth. This is the LinkedIn version of me.
Stop,
and
John.
I'm not even, I'm not, whatever. I read a lot of police books. I have zero interest in really deep diving into Harrison's book. I'll buy it just because I support cops, you know what I mean? But like I really highly doubt I'm gonna read it and dissect it.
Wait a minute, John. Are you saying Chiefs lie? I don't believe that. Come on.
Well, the new Chiefs do. Yeah, the new Chiefs, you have to. It's required for you.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't get that.
To not have an opinion on anything public safety related, and you can't speak about any of the ills of the profession. Like the whole thing is like they just don't want to talk about it. So it's a complete joke.
Yeah.
You have to understand. Leo Firpini says, Anamone was a wartime consigliere. That guy never gets to the heights of the NYPD today. 100%. 100%.
True.
But that is the
Spot on.
reason. That is the exact reason that the NYPD is in decline today. Because we are in a constant state of warfare, politically, spiritually, mentally. Like, we're in that constant state of warfare. And when we don't police things anymore, that's when the corruption comes in. And you've seen that. When we don't police the streets, that's when the crime comes up. So I know the media is telling you that NYPD, that New York City is at historic lows. But like Eric said, it's just so normal that a 75-year-old guy in a park just gets shot to death. Yeah. Because crime's down. Because crime's down. That's how it happens, that a guy enjoying his retirement, enjoying a nice day in New York City parks, gets shot to death. And there's an article that's this big in the newspaper about it.
Wait,
75 years old.
is that the same guy who the Jewish bakery owner in Queens?
Queens. I don't know if he was the Jewish bakery owner. He was the story was very vague in the paper. Very short article. 75-year-old man shot dead in a park in Queens. Very short article.
Yeah, because there's another one that came out yesterday about a Jewish bakery owner who was killed. He's connected to Hatzola in Queens, and he was shot like in the chest and head. So if it's a case of two guys getting killed in the park, then it's it's even worse than we think.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna look that up more because I don't know if it's the same person, but like I said, the article was so vague. But that raises some real eyebrows. If it's two, that's even worse.
All right, let's do it. Let's get to the coffee and donuts. Yeah, crime's down. Just don't go to the park.
Don't give us too much coffee and donuts because then we can go corrupt like Michael Dow. Just don't be strapped or you'll get clapped. I went through state assembly bills yesterday. I'm gonna have a lot of videos coming out in the next coming weeks. I'm sure we're gonna do a bunch of episodes about those bills too. Obviously, too much to get through to today. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Let's get to the coffee and donuts, or the corruption cup. Here we go. Anthony says, keeping us informed. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you being here, brother. Appreciate you weighing in. Modern Samurai says, being uninsurable will be a way for the department to show you the door, to avoid liabilities completely and to put it out all on POs and their supervisors. Here's another bill. I'm going to do a video on this in a little bit, probably right when I get off of it. Here's another bill coming out of the assembly. The bill is that when you're issued charges and specifications, you are suspended and as a member of the New York City Police Department, that's what the bill's written, you are suspended without pay until those charges are completely litigated. So, which most cases take 3 years.
Yeah. So you're off, you're shelved. So think about that too, while we're talking about being uninsurable. So that was a great point. You just reminded me of that. I'm going to do a video on that probably right after we get off of here. Real insane. Have you heard about that from your unions? Oh, because I haven't heard it. I haven't heard them say it.
Don't worry about it.
I haven't heard all the people that love this profession so much. I would jump back in tomorrow and work for Zohran Mandani and push down all of his insane edicts. I love this job so much that I'm willing to be used to destroy it.
Don't worry about it, John. See, they passed the diaphragm law, chokehold ban, all that. Just go out. You'll be fine. Kid, you're going to get a great pension. Don't worry about it. I was told, don't worry about it. You're going to get a good pension. Could you and John just kind of be a little more quiet? Just don't say much. That's all. Just go enjoy your pension. Go enjoy your life. That's what I was told. Coffee and donuts, baby.
Geez, Daniel, I gotta iron my look, Daniel. Come on, it's a t-shirt.
Damn, you're beating him on. He said he made fun of you for not mowing your lawn, which I don't mow my lawn anymore either, bro. I'm too old. It's too hot in Florida.
Oh shit!
I did take down a couple of trees though in the last 2 days. Felt like a man again, I was out there being John the Builder again, I felt like a real man.
You wear a lumberjack shirt?
What?
Did you wear a lumberjack shirt when you did it?
No, I had no shirt on. My wife always says, she's like, you're always the only person on the block that works with no shirt on.
Oh, you went shirtless?
I always go shirtless. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
John's sweaty.
You got to let
chest.
the other guys on the block know who's running things around here. You know, you might be taller than me, bro. You might be taller than me. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
John just praying. Some old lady's looking at him like, "See, I got some looks."
Yeah, that's it, baby.
Yeah. Sorry, Daniel. I'll wear a suit and tie from that one. Okay. We need we have a opening for a guy wearing a suit and tie on the platform. So I guess I'll replace him.
He needs suspenders, man. He got some nice suspenders. That's what John would wear. Suspenders with no shirt.
That's it, baby. I always wanted to be a fireman. I should have took that test. Damn it. You know. All right. Upstate Detective. Good morning, brothers. Sounds like there will be different coverages for everyone. Sounds like this will be a horror show. It sounds like
someone who gets it.
Sounds like it to me, but it also sounds like there's going to be a lot of money being made. A lot of money. A lot of money.
Thank you for at least somebody gets it.
Yeah. A lot of money. Don't worry. We'll use AI to sort it all out. It won't be that hard. We won't have to think about it too much.
I'm serious about that, man. They may come out with, they may say you have to fire your taser before you shoot someone. Who's going to stop the insurance company from doing that?
Well, they won't say it. I mean, if you shoot somebody and your premium goes up, then you're more likely to use the taser first, right?
That's true too. Yeah. Oh, damn! I should have.
Another bill. You just reminded me, Eric. Another bill on the state legislature coming out of the assembly. They want to change the use of force guidelines totally. They want to make when you could actually use deadly physical force, the person has to be in commission of a felony. And you have to fear that they're going to kill someone else if you like. I won't talk about it now because I don't know exactly the wording of it, but I'm going to do a video on it later in the week. Insane, man. Yeah, absolutely insane. You know, I thought city council was crazy until I started reading the state assembly legislation. But I did see a lot of legislation like trying to help cops. But I'm not an asshole. None of that is going through. Like none of it's going through. Like they want to make PTSD 3/4. So then, like if PTSD is 3/4, then we should be like the fire department because we should all be retroactively issued 3/4. I have PTSD. You have PTSD. He has PTSD. Like what cop doesn't after 10 years? You know? Yeah. Like it's insane. You know what I mean?
Well, if you don't have PTSD, you weren't doing police work.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, hey, listen.
Well, you can get PSD getting the cheap coffee on the NYPD.
I think it should be written. I think it should be written into law. Maybe it's already. Maybe we just didn't see it. That every chief, when you hit the rank of chief, you get your ankle goes bad. You get 3/4. Every chief should get it.
What? Just go enjoy your retirement. Shh.
I'm sure every woman has PTSD. Every woman on the job has PTSD every time they had to get Chief Henderson or Madry a cup of coffee. You know?
Oh yeah, definitely.
that must have been the walk of shame.
Yeah,
when they were sucking their teeth. Yeah.
Hey, how about that first grade?
Yeah. Yeah. Mon Samurai. This would be a good time to combine the unions under one flag. I know it won't happen, but it would be in their best interest to unite and fight as one force rather than 5 smaller ones. So again, like there's a lot of issues why you wouldn't do that. But as far as when we talk about health coverage, when we talk about dental, when we talk about eye coverage, I mean, it's ridiculous. And honestly, I don't even blame the unions. I blame the union members because we should all be pushing for that. We should all be holding their feet to the fire. Again, they work for us. That's it. That pinky ring isn't a sign of respect. It doesn't matter. You're the president. Okay, whatever, bro. You work for me. Like, get the job going. So, blame us.
I guarantee the insurance companies are going to, you know how insurance companies normally hook up doctors with stuff? They're going to hook up the union guys with pinky rings. They're going to have the names of the insurance company on that pinky ring. Don't worry. You'll see. It's coming.
They'll get them like your veneers, they'll all have like shining white teeth. Your dental plan is garbage, but all your union will have perfect teeth and hair from turkey that's paid for. You know, it's like Hendry will just come out with like flowing locks one day. You know, it'll be.
You'll see it. They're gonna come out with an insurance company like, you know, no touch insurance, like you don't touch people, no touch insurance, and you'll have the union guys like, oh, the insurance company's great. Meanwhile, next week they're on vacation.
But I have noticed Monroe and Hendry all have now stepped up their social media game a lot. And all you cocks are like, yeah, thank you. But wait, you're not even saying thank you. You're just liking it and resharing it. You know why you're not saying thank you? Because you're not allowed to even comment on their social media posts. I refuse to like a post that I can't comment on. I refuse to like it. Like, and all of you guys that are doing that, you're cucks. I just want to let you know that. Get your cuck high chair out and do what you got to do.
Well, Scott also does that too, by the way. His owner's blocked.
Both of them. Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
No
Did I just hear you say that combining unions is a bad idea, John? I think that's a great discussion we need to have later on.
I didn't say it was a bad idea. I said I could see why there would be issues why you wouldn't when it comes to supervision. Like the interest of a lieutenant or a captain may be different from the interest of a sergeant. You know what I mean? And there could be different, like there could be different points for you to fight on that are solely specific to that rank. So I could see why combining totally. But as far as benefits are concerned, 100%, we should all be in a large pool, and it should be the best product for all of the members. Because what does it make a difference? Why should a police officer have better dental and a detective have better dental than a sergeant, a lieutenant, or a captain, or vice versa? Makes no sense. Like, we should get the best policy there is, and that shouldn't be hard to figure out what it is. Who gets the most coverage with the most amount of money, and form this coalition that Scott's building this coalition. Build it with the guys that are in the NYPD, Scott, not the fucking guys in East Buttfuck, New York that nobody knows about. I'm with the Oneonta police chief. Like, all right, great, Scott. Nobody gives a fuck. Stop kissing Kathy Hochul's ass. Get Pat Hendry, get all these other guys on board, and get us all some good dental and eye coverage. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying now. But I do believe that there shouldn't be like certain unions. We don't need a DEA separate from the PB. That's, first of all, that's stupid. Okay. You're the same level, Why is there a separate union for the DEA? And I don't think there should be a separate union from sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. Okay. I think above that, yeah, maybe you should have your own thing. But I just think they could be slimmed down. It's just stupid that there's a separate union from the sergeants and lieutenants. I mean, it's a test. To me, that, man, we could have a great discussion on that. But I think
I agree. Marlon, I said this for years. There's no place for egos in the unions, and I don't think when you're into the union, it should be known when you're working in the union that rank goes out the window. It's about what your position is in that union and helping the membership. And I think it should all be one union. And if it's a sergeant that is the one that becomes the president of the union over a captain, fine. You should understand, if you're a captain and you're in the union, that's a different element. There should be no rank there as far as you're not doing police work. I'm sorry. When you're in the union, if you're a trustee and board, you're not really a cop anymore. You're a union board member who represents the cops. So I don't think that rank should even be an issue there. I think we should 100%. There would be so much stronger, strength in numbers, be much better plans. Everyone should have Cigna. Why is it that some have these crappy dental plans? And, John, the fact that you have to pay, and when it comes to dental, 2,000 is nothing. The fact that your threshold is 2,000, it's nothing.
It doesn't matter, dude. Family is 6, family is 7, two people. It's nothing. Like, imagine you have 7 kids. Nothing. And I know people with 7 kids, by the way.
2,000. Just the cleaning itself is $200-$300 off that. So 2,000 is nothing. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. But again, I think that should be understood. You want to be in the union, you become a union board member. Your rank goes out the window. Yeah, your rank is important when you're doing police work, but not when you're doing union stuff. Why does it matter what your rank is when you're doing union stuff? It doesn't matter to me. Sorry.
Look, let's save this for another day. How about that? Come on, guys.
All right.
Let's save this for a different title.
You're gonna need a long day for that, brother.
Eric Eric always bitches that we go too long, and then Marlon hooks him into another topic.
Yeah, that's true.
He's ready to go.
Marlon, it's your fault, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
what do you want to say, Marlon? I know you want to respond. Go ahead. What do you got to say?
No, I ain't gonna respond. I just had to bring that up, But you're right. We should have another discussion about it.
Marlon, you're hilarious, bro.
Long discussion.
You hooked. Eric's like,
the bait was in, dude.
All right. Let's go. Nolan, what do you got today? Let's hear. It's always Nolan super chats are always real awkward. So let's hear this one. John, you are aware that Stephen Bishop Lee is now in lockstep with Sally Boy G and the Eric George Jefferson Sanders show. Hate to say it, but I told you so. Look, whatever everybody does, that's their own thing. This is America. We support everybody. We don't care.
Oh,
Even our haters. And I don't need my haters to become my waiters when I sit down at the table of success. So it doesn't matter. I don't even need to address them. I'm mad we even brought up about Team Eric Adams or the ponytail. Like it's a waste of time, honestly. They're nobody. They're engagement farming. I know he put out another post about me yesterday saying that he declined to represent me, tried to put my name with yours, Nolan. I don't even know you from a hole in the wall. I don't know anything about you. So he tried to combine me and you into the same thing, and that he flatly declined to represent us. And again, I'm going to say one more time, saying that you're going to do this on the arm because we're like family is not flatly out declining to represent anyone. I don't know what legal ease or legal term he's talking about. And that's the last time I'll address that, because guy's a loser. Go win some cases, shut your mouth. Nobody cares about you. Thank you for all watching the Finest Unfiltered. We appreciate you. Anybody wants to align themselves with that platform, that's their own personal interest. You guys and girls that listen to us and continue to listen to him, that's America. You guys do what you want. I'm going to do what I want. I choose not to listen to that garbage. I hear narrative spinning and I hear propaganda coming out of it, and I personally don't enjoy it. If you guys do, more power to you.
Are we up for Modern Samurai's Coffee Donuts? Because this one's funny.
Yeah.
He says, you think insurance companies are going to insure some PO who are grossly obese, can't shoot, can't run, can't drive? Good luck with that. We all know walking liabilities.
Yeah.
There's another discussion in there too about how they're going to manage your health too for another day,
Yeah. Dude, we could go on and on. That's the whole point. People always said, oh, you're going to run out of content. No, we can't even keep up with it.
Yeah. And they will be managing your health too.
Yeah. I remember a big fat guy that just drank like big slurps, like big gulps. He would come in with like these huge like things of soda, and he was like diabetic, and he had every issue known to man wrong with him because he couldn't stop eating and eating crap. And I remember him telling me that because I wouldn't take the vax, that I shouldn't get a hospital bed. I was like, you really want to start rationing healthcare, buddy? I was like, you really want to do that with me? I'm like, I work out every day. I watch what I eat. My blood pressure is perfect. My blood work's perfect. You want to manage healthcare? I was like, because if you want to do that, you want to start rationing it off, guess who's going to be the first one to be liable? And that was my last conversation when I had with him. High up rank in a union, not in the police union though.
I just want to add this also. I do see this as a big money grab, though. If the auto policies, if they're the ones that won't carry these, if they come out with special insurance firms, I could foresee or foreshadow auto insurance companies trying to attach themselves to this. Like, hey, they could, with your police company, if they get auto insurance with us, they'll get a discount. Mm-hmm. So to get that auto insurance. So this is a big money grab for everybody.
It's a new product, baby. It's a new product going to the mainstream. That's it. And it's a new cost of doing business. So, yeah, that's it, peoples. I think that's it. Oh, and Mon Samurai wanted to double down on Mullen's shirt. I look, my shirt looks like it's wrinkled the way I'm sitting, but it's not. I mean, it's perfect.
Not mine. I didn't iron it. I don't know why it came out so good.
Yeah, but it depends the shirt. Like some shirts sit right when you're sitting, and some of them only look right when you're standing.
I wear next level t-shirts. They're always good.
No, this was wrinkled. I mean, I literally just grabbed it out the drawer, just
after I got dressed in the dark.
Huh?
You got dressed in the dark.
No, but I mean, hey, listen, if you want something so predictable and I guess you want us to dress in suits and in ties and all that, then you watch Fox News for it, right? And that's all manufactured again. Yeah. So this is us being authentic here, Next
We'll have
time
our
I'll
fake
just wear my
veneers.
pajamas.
I'll come back with a
get
whole
even
head
more
of hair from Turkey. I'll have perfect teeth and a whole head of hair from Turkey, and I'll pretend like nothing happened. I'll be like, "What are you talking about?
I'm
I
sorry.
always had this hair."
I don't want to wear a shirt and tie every day. I like a shirt and tie once in a while, but not every day. That's not my thing. I like black t-shirts. It's dark t-shirts. I'm good to go.
I like to dress up sometimes.
And John
I even
could
like
do
to
an
put the
episode
glasses
in,
on sometimes.
and John could do an episode in front of the pool because he's in when it gets
He's
really
shirtless.
hot in Florida. Doesn't get more.
That's why I love the show Yellowstone, because Cole Hauser, that plays the main character there, always reminds me of myself. Like, I have like 1,000 black t-shirts. I don't mind. I just go grab my. It's not hard to figure out to get dressed real quick. I throw on my jeans and grab my black t-shirt. I'm ready to go.
It's like Joe Rogan, I think, is the worst dresser ever. He either wears a t-shirt and jeans, or he wears that black button-up shirt to every UFC event or every comedy show. It's just it's like he just only has black button-up shirts. I was like, this dude is like whatever. But I've been wearing those true classic tees that they're actually not bad, dude. They're not the best. But they're better than like the Hanes ones. Like really fell off, man. I used to just love Hanes V-neck t-shirts, but I get them now. They're like destroyed before I even put them on. I'm like, what the hell? Like
you're talking about the True Classic, right? The one you get online, True Classic.
True Classic, yeah, that great.
Yeah, those are great.
But they're expensive. Like if you buy them separately, they're like $30 a pop. But if you buy them in bulk, you get them for like 20 or whatever.
I had a bunch of those. They're great t-shirts.
Yeah, and then underwear. If you're a man, Tommy John is the best underwear in my opinion.
Nah, I gotta argue that one. What's it called? Sax. That's my favorite. SAXX. Best underwear. Anybody know it? You know it?
You ever wear Tommy John?
Yes, I wore Tommy John, Sax, and then there's one called 2 Under. Obviously, that's what it's called, 2 Under. But yeah, it's a high-end store selling, but I think my favorite is Sax.
I never wore the Sax. I seen them.
They're like $50 a pair, but they're comfortable,
But Tommy John's the easiest ones to pee out of. You could just pull out your whole thing right out of it.
Yeah, well, Sax
they're the easiest ones to pee out of.
Sax has the pouch that holds your manhood.
It has a pouch too that you could take down. Yes,
Sax has a comfortable pouch. It's like a sleeping bag for your manhood. It's really comfortable.
Sounds like you'd sweat.
So anybody ever wear Sax? Tell me. I'm doing this like $50 a pair, but if you find them cheaper, buy it. I guarantee you put on a pair of Sax underwear to change your life. I'm not kidding. You'll actually go out there with a smile.
Yeah.
Hunter says John McCarry next Mark Wahlberg.
Well, Tavaroy says, "Who's John Kennedy?" He's got a closet full of wife beaters in there. I mean, I would. Nobody could call you a liar, bro.
what brand? Actually, I'll never forget though. I'll never forget one time I was working, and I don't know if you guys ever heard this before. First time I ever heard someone put that over the radio, that was hilarious. And they gave a description of a potential perpetrator, and they said the guy was out in a wife beater. That was hilarious. Whatever, I don't know, male, black, male, white, whatever, but all they said was 6 feet tall in a wife beater. I was like, wow. You just said that on the radio?
Hunter says, Hunter, I am much taller than Joe Rogan. I just want to let you know that. I am much taller than him. But it's funny that that my nickname became Tiny Tim. I wonder where he got that from. It's almost like he's been listening to the podcast and listening to everyone try to make fun of my height and Modern Samurai saying I carry around a step stool. And I'm
for 4 hours.
It's almost like he's been on the show. It's weird. Thanks for letting us know, bro. We appreciate it. We love the criticism as much as we love the applause.
How much you want to bet they run every show through AI and get a transcript so they can do their show? Hold on. This was John said this, Eric said this, and Marlon said this. Let's pick out the key points. Great. Now we can do our show. Congratulations.
Yeah, they're watching it live. Yeah.
Well, they do both. They watch it live and then they put AI so they can actually understand it.
Well.
Hood Maya says Sal spoke about Taylor yesterday. Executive perspective is discussing it today. Well, we spoke about Taylor on Monday, so I guess that whole timeline is going to throw that off, right, Hood? Right? So, I mean, and I'm positive the first time you heard anything about it was from this show. So
come on, Hood.
we just didn't harp on it and become solely obsessed with it because we don't do other people's dirty work. Where
was my boy Hood? Was he here Monday? Come on, man.
Hood man?
Yeah.
He's there every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Hood man.
Yeah. And like, yeah, he wants the conversation. He's like, I don't know Jack's history, but somebody got his number. He's got good intel. Yeah, okay. Hood, listen, watch this show, listen to what the hell we say, and then listen to what they say. It's not hard. There's his intel. It's a joke.
No, but it's not right. Got you again. Halving pride, stand tall.
Yeah. What's up, baby? Stand tall. All right, peoples. Let's break out of here. Make sure you check out the executive perspective tonight, and they'll give their take on Taylor. Not it's not gonna wheeling and dealing, baby. So yeah. Well, all right, peoples.
I can say this to Richie Taylor as a fellow Jewish man. Mazel tov, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, Taylor. At least all criticism comes from our heart, not from a certain president over at the Guardian Association. So not from a certain attorney who wants to get in their pockets either.
It's my favorite part of the show.
So all right, peoples. All right, we're out of here. Anything before we run, fellas?
Mullen, anything?
Nope. Have a great day, guys. Stay safe and stay alert.
Yeah, like, share, subscribe, Finest Unfiltered. Thank you, baby. Everybody be good. See you on Friday.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?